Chapter 631. Xiao Jin didn't understand why as he carried his space bag and turned around, calling the youngsters to retrieve firewood from the kitchen as he directly set up a fire in the courtyard. We've given Blue Dragon Mercenary Group 54 sets. Yi Qing Luo suddenly opened her mouth as she called out to Xiao Jin, "Before you burn it, count how many sets there are." These sets of clothes were indeed brought back by her. Even the group uniforms on those corpses who had died at the entrance of the magic beast forest. Yi Qing Luo also asked Shiju to bring them back. She picked up the number of sets which Ji Tsongtian had worn away, based on Ji Tsongtian's character, after he returned to his own camp and saw his disheveled self, then seeing those 30 over members returning. Looking at the clothes they were wearing, he would recall the humiliation he had suffered in the magic beast forest. He would definitely be fuming with rage. She asked them to change out of their clothes and throw them out of sight and out of mind. Yi Qing Luo wouldn't give them any chance to malign the world group. If one set of clothes was used, it could possibly cause a huge impact on the world group. Yi Qing Luo wanted to eliminate all possibilities. Xiao Jin seemed to have understood something as he laughed out loudly. "You're the one who thought it through thoroughly. Burn all these clothes." Anyway, for the next 1 month, they wouldn't be able to wear the group uniform which belonged to them. They had plenty of time to customize a new batch of uniforms. The material and enchantment, as well as the gravity belt, had to be done meticulously. These were all things which Yan Xiao had discussed with the tailor shop early on. They only needed to wait for a month before they could collect it from the tailor shop. Not long later, the courtyard was lit up with flames as pieces of uniforms were thrown into the flames. A total of 54 pieces, no more and no less. Xiao Jin was burning as he told Yi Qing Luo the numbers which he had counted. Yi Qing Luo nodded as her heart, which was hanging in the balance, was finally put down. Lighting a fire in the courtyard so early in the morning. "Are you trying to burn down this huge mansion?" Suddenly an old but powerful voice was heard from the end of the courtyard. Following that, they saw an elderly dressed in a white robe walking over leisurely. It seemed as though he had just casually taken a step, but in a blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of Yi Qing Luo and the others. Expert. This was absolutely an expert. The youngsters' gazes were fixed on that elderly. Why did he look a little familiar? Yi Qing Luo also had this feeling. He furrowed his brows and stared at the old man as he thought about it for a long time. In the end, he said with uncertainty, "Are you Holy Pirate?" The old man raised his eyebrows and raised his hand to touch his grizzled hair. His eyes were bright. "After taking a bath, trimming my hair, and changing my clothes, I'm so handsome that you can't recognize me?" It was really Holy Pirate. One must know that when he was rescued from Death God Castle's dungeon, he was a person who had not bathed for 10 years. His body was so dirty that he was almost covered in lice and bedbugs. How could she recognize a face that was completely black? After bringing God Thief back to the mansion, Yi Qing Luo's entire mind was on the Dark Forces matters and the other missions, totally throwing him aside. He didn't expect Holy Pirate to take care of himself. God knows how much water he had to wash himself to be so clean. "Little girl, are you going to the academy? Go in peace. Leave the mansion and the world group to me." God Thief patted his chest. Why did Yi Qing Luo feel that this old man was extremely unreliable? Chapter 632. Yi Qing Luo felt that this old man was even more unreliable. However, he was still an old man that he had picked up. Moreover, he was once the #1 holy thief in the Nirvana realm. Even if he had not been able to stretch his muscles and bones for 10 years, he would be able to recover his skills in a few days. Even if he wasn't as powerful as before, he still had the ability to protect himself. As long as he could find the feeling he once had, the Holy Pirate of the past could return. After all, to become the #1 holy thief, one had to rely on absolute power. She could not bring Holy Pirate to the college. It would be a good idea to let Holy Pirate manage the mansion. What's more, the 30-odd members of the Blue Dragon group might come to report to him. Yi Ching Luo still handed the manor over to God Thief to look after. As for the World group, Yi Ching Luo didn't hand it over to God Thief, only instructing him repeatedly that if anyone were to bring the proof of the World group's seal over to them, then leave them behind. By the time they had arranged everything, it was already morning, which was around 7 or 8 in the morning. Yi Ching Luo and the rest left the mansion. They didn't arrive at the academy together. Instead, they split up into several teams. If he were to stay by Yi Ching Luo's side, he would probably become the center of attention again. It would also easily expose the devil class to the public. Yi Ching Luo only brought Yi Fengyu along and walked openly through the academy's main entrance. Today was the first day of school, and there was a sea of people at the entrance of the academy, with an endless stream of horses and carriages. After Yi Ching Luo and Yi Fengyu walked into the academy, they indeed became the center of attention. After all, what happened in the Three Springs sect on a holiday was too unbelievable. First, Yi Ching Jian and Lung Feng Hua's secret affair was exposed. It was exposed that they were in the Crown Prince Palace's garden in broad daylight. Moreover, Yi Ching Qian was tormented till she was injured. Of course, if Yi Ching Qian and Lung Feng Hua were in love with each other, then it was perfectly justifiable. But unfortunately, Lung Feng Hua was Yi Ching Qian's seventh sister and also Yi Ching Luo's fiancée. This was the loss of morals. This was the wrong view of the world. Yi Ching Qian's deeds naturally affected Three Springs sect. Naturally, it would implicate Yi Ching Luo. It was like someone's father was a murderer. Everyone would subconsciously think that the whole family was a murderer when they saw that person's family. While everyone was sympathizing with Yi Ching Luo, at the same time, they felt that Yi Ching Luo and Yi Ching Jian were almost the same. After all, they were taught by the same father. But after that, news of Yi Ching Luo clashing with the high profound class students at Heavenly Fortune Inn and finally being taken away by the Overlord's sacred beast, Nine-Tailed Fox, started to spread. While everyone was ridiculing Yi Ching Qian, no one dared to bring Yi Ching Luo along. It could be said that during the 3 days of vacation, the first miss and seventh miss of the Three Springs sect manor had become the talk of the town. You still have the guts to come to the academy? How shameless! Just as everyone was discussing in hushed voices, a sharp and ear-piercing voice rang out. Shortly after, a young girl walked over with her hands on her hips. Yi Ching Luo couldn't be bothered, but the young lady was standing right in front of her and stretched out her hand to block her. This was the entrance to the academy, and there were many students coming and going. On seeing that someone dared to find fault with Yi Ching Luo, they all stopped in their tracks to watch excitedly. Your eldest sister did such a shameless thing and was chased out of Three Springs City. She's setting off today. Aren't you going to send her off? That young lady spoke in a weird tone. Shangguan Liuli. Chapter 633. You. Shangguan Liuli's face turned gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yi Ching Luo. Such a huge matter had happened in Three Springs sect. How could Yi Ching Luo still remain so calm? Yi Ching Qian was her elder sister. The Three Springs sect was her backer. Now that there were rumors and slanderous discussions, she could still smile? Was she intentionally acting so calm, or was she too cold-blooded? Shangguan Liuli's heart seeped out a sliver of coldness. Yi Ching Luo's gaze casually swept past the surrounding students as her charming eyes remained calm. Firstly, whatever Yi Ching Qian did, she's shameless and it has nothing to do with me. Secondly, you're an unmarried young lady, and in front of everyone, you dare to say such shameless things that Yi Ching Luo had done. This is enough to prove that the thoughts in your mind are also dirty and shameless. When Yi Ching Luo said the second point, Shangguan Liuli's steely green face instantly turned red. She clenched her teeth tightly as her 5 fingers clutched the corner of her clothes as her fingertips turned white. You're talking nonsense. I didn't. However, Shangguan Liuli's rebuttal didn't have much confidence. Her imposing manner had been completely suppressed by Yi Qing Luo. The surrounding students' gazes towards Shangguan Liuli had also changed. Those pairs of unclear eyes looked at Shangguan Liuli as though her mind was really filled with dirty thoughts. There were even some male students who had already revealed a covetous gaze towards her. Shangguan Liuli had never suffered such humiliation before. Since when had she been stared at in such a blatant manner? Her entire face instantly flushed red from embarrassment and indignation. Her petite body was shaking nonstop as a pair of watery eyes stared resentfully at Yi Qing Luo. But Yi Qing Luo's expression remained calm, as though she hadn't noticed Shangguan Liuli's vengeful gaze. Or perhaps she totally didn't put Shangguan Liuli in her eyes. Following that, Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled as she revealed an elegant smile. Thirdly, are you sure that Yi Qing Qian will be chased out of Three Springs City today? What do you mean? Shangguan Liuli was startled, her beautiful eyes widening. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly. Her long and narrow eyes revealed a hint of ridicule. Regarding the second half of the rumor, I'm afraid the chess player did not tell you about it. A chess player? No matter how silly Shangguan Liuli was, she understood Yi Qing Luo's meaning. She was being used by someone. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's serene eyes, Shangguan Liuli's heart trembled as she suddenly thought of something as her face turned pale. Yesterday, when she had a flower tea gathering with the other ladies from the noble families, she overheard Lu Shuiyu and Lu Shuilan discussing the Three Springs sect. That was when he found out that something huge had happened to Three Springs sect's Yi Qingjian. The Lu sisters kept on shifting the topic to Yi Qing Luo, talking about it in a few words. Yi Qing Luo and Yi Qingjian were sisters, so naturally they received the same education. Yi Qingqian was shameless, and Yi Qing Luo must also be a shameless lady. Following that, they started on various topics, pointing out that Yi Qing Luo was able to gain DMO, Xian's favor, was absolutely because of her foxy skills. Hearing these, Shangguan Liuli, who originally bore a grudge against Yi Qing Luo, how could she possibly let go of this chance to ridicule Yi Qing Luo? Her reputation was the most important thing for a lady. Because of this, Shangguan Liuli blocked the academy's entrance early in the morning, just to humiliate Yi Qing Luo fiercely, ruining her reputation, making her the laughingstock of the entire Three Spring City. But Yi Qing Luo's performance was too calm. So calm that Shangguan Liuli started to feel a little guilty. The second half of the rumor. We'll be able to see it soon. Yi Qing Luo's gaze shot towards a direction not too far away, as a teasing smile flashed past her eyes. Chapter 634. As expected, at the instant when Yi Qing Luo's words had just ended, she heard astonished cries coming from the huge crowd of people. Following that, a luxurious and exquisite carriage, which was inlaid with sparkling crystals, was seen slowly approaching. Wasn't the person in front of the carriage the current second prince, Leng Fengying? Ever since Leng Fenghua fell from power, second prince's status had risen along with it. Numerous powerhouses and nobles all treated second prince as the crown prince's candidate, which was the future monarch. Even now, the crown prince's position had yet to be decided. But after all, in the entire West Continent, only second prince had the ability to become the crown prince. Because of this, when these people saw Leng Fengying, all of them revealed a fawning smile as they went up to him in an attempt to attract his attention. Especially those elders who were sending their children to school. They all went up to greet him. Leng Fengying maintained his gentle and refined smile from start to finish. His handsome features looked innocent and harmless. If one didn't know him well, just based on his looks, they would only think that he was a weak young man without the strength to truss a chicken, a soft-footed prawn that could be easily pinched. This kind of person easily made others feel close to him. This kind of person was even more welcomed by the imperial court's ministers. But to be able to grow up in the royal family, to be able to establish a batch of imperial court forces under Lung Fenghua's oppression, and also to pull in a portion of the external forces unknowingly. Finally, after Lung Fenghua met with a mishap, every step he took was so natural. Yi Qing Luo didn't believe that this second prince was someone who was easy to deal with. Shangguan Lili saw Lung Fengying at one glance as her eyes shone. It's second prince! That dainty face was an obvious bashfulness of a young lady meeting her sweetheart. She took quick steps forward and squeezed past those people who were flocking towards her as she pounced beside Lung Fengying, second prince. Lung Fengying, who had just flipped down the horse, had a smile on his face, as though he was bathed in the spring breeze, warming the earth. He passed the reins to the footboy, and his arm was covered by a touch of warmth. Lowering his eyes, he saw Shangguan Liuli's bashful smile as she looked at him with a beaming face. Second prince, you haven't come to Shangguan residence to see me for a long time. Her tone was filled with tenderness. The onlookers looked at the two of them with dubious gazes. The second prince was so familiar with the daughter of the Shangguan family. From time to time, he would go to the Shangguan residence to visit the daughter of the Shangguan housekeeper. Could it be that the second prince was going to marry into the Shangguan family? Fifth Miss Shangguan. Lung Fengying calmly retracted his hand as he silently pulled the distance between the two of them apart with a gentle smile. A few days ago, I consulted Shangguan family head about the plan to control the flood in the North Village, and it has already started to be implemented. I've been busy with this matter and forgot to thank Shangguan family head. It's this prince's fault. In just a few words, he had completely explained the ambiguous meaning in Shangguan Liuli's words. Everyone was enlightened. It turned out that the second prince went to the Shangguan residence to ask for a plan to control the flooding in Beituan. The second prince was indeed a benevolent prince who cared for the common people. As expected, he was a smart man. He was definitely not on the same level as Lung Fenghua. If this time round, even if she hadn't opened up an entrance for Lung Fengying, not too long in the future, Lung Fengying would use his own method to open up an entrance for himself. The moment the words about controlling the flood were explained, naturally no one would doubt the authenticity of these words. Because Shangguan family's Shangguan family head was once an official in the imperial court, hence he was in charge of this aspect. Chapter 635. However, Shangguan Liuli, who was fixated on her Prince Charming, did not bring her brain with her. Or rather, Shangguan Liuli had no brains at all. She totally didn't understand the meaning in Lung Fengying's words, nor did she notice the distance that Lung Fengying had pulled apart from her. The second prince cares about the people. Father will not blame you. Saying that, Shangguan Liuli took another step forward as she stretched out her hand to hook onto Lung Fengying's arm once again. Second prince, even if the problem of controlling the flood is settled, you can also come to Shangguan residence to take a look at Liuli. Liuli really misses you. Hearing this sentence, Yi Qing Luo almost coughed out. Should she say that Shangguan Liuli was stupid, or that she knew how to play with people's hearts? Shangguan Liuli would stop her at the academy's entrance and use Yi Qing Qian's matter to ruin her reputation. She probably knew the importance of a good reputation to a woman. But unfortunately, the expression on Shangguan Liuli's face and the words she said revealed her admiration towards Lung Fengying, as well as her private, ambiguous relationship with Lung Fenghua. She was certain that Lung Fengying would marry her. One must know that Shangguan Liuli's performance in front of everyone had totally tagged her as Lung Fengying. If Lung Fengying didn't marry her, Shangguan Liuli would probably be single for the rest of her life. After all, Lung Fengying's identity was there for all to see. It was very likely that he would be the future monarch. Who would dare to touch a woman that the monarch might have had an affair with? What Yi Qing Luo was thinking was naturally what everyone was thinking. All of them discussed in low voices, trying to guess the relationship between Shangguan Liuli and the second prince. Right at this moment, the curtain of the luxurious carriage was pinched by a white finger, and then a sweet-sounding voice was heard. "Fifth Miss Shangguan, in the heart of the second prince, there is only the West Continent and all the common people of the West Continent. Could it be that fifth Miss Shangguan hopes that the second prince will abandon the common people and go to the Shangguan residence to see you every day?" His tone was filled with disdain and mockery. Ding, ding, dong, dong. The sound of jewelry colliding against each other could be heard. Immediately, a woman dressed in luxurious clothing came out of the carriage. Lung Feng immediately went over and stretched out his hand to support that woman. Shangguan Liuli's hand, which she tried to pull over, naturally missed. That young lady's little hand was placed on the back of Lung Fengying's hand as she slowly walked down the carriage. When everyone saw the woman's face clearly, they all cried out in disbelief. Yi Qingqian. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened in shock. This woman was wearing a greenish-white academy uniform, and there were a few dazzling accessories on her waist. The most eye-catching thing about her was her face. Her makeup was exquisite, and her deliberately trimmed eyebrows were full of heroic spirit. Her seemingly simple, yet graceful hair was pinned with a dazzling hairpin and hair ornament. Wasn't this the Yi Qingqian whom the monarch had assigned to King Ping, the one who was going to follow King Ping to the fief? At this time, wasn't she already in the carriage arranged by the monarch and leaving Three Spring City? She actually wore the academy uniform and appeared in the Heavenly Academy. Moreover, he had come together with the second prince. For so many years, the second prince had always kept a low profile and had a good character. He had never had any bad rumors with any woman. If one were to say that Shangguan Liuli's ambiguous words had stirred up gossip in everyone's hearts, most people still did not quite believe it. But the minute they saw Yi Qingqian, their gossipy hearts started to boil. Second prince and Yi Qingqian? Who was Yi Qingqian? Second prince's future sister-in-law. She had a relationship with second prince's eldest brother. How did second prince get involved with Yi Qingqian? And from the looks of this situation, from second prince's attitude towards Yi Qingqian, it was obviously. Chapter 636. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. She wanted to ask, the male god in her heart, holding the hand of the woman whom she despised from the bottom of her heart, walking arrogantly in front of her, how would she feel? Shangguan Liuli only knew that a cord in her brain had snapped. Suddenly it exploded, leaving only a blank space. Her body had already started to move according to Shangguan Liuli's most genuine thoughts. She speedily walked in front of Lung Fengying, blocking his path as she stared fiercely at Yi Qingqian. "Second prince, what's your relationship with this slut?" The surrounding crowd stuck their heads out, expressing that they were extremely curious about the answer to this question. "Fifth Miss Shangguan, what relationship I have with second prince is none of your business." Yi Qingqian's brows rose as her lips curled into a contemptuous smile. "A good dog doesn't block the way. Fifth Miss Shangguan, please move aside." You actually dare to call me a dog." Shangguan Liuli's cheeks flushed red, especially that smirk of ridicule in Yi Qingqian's eyes pierced deeply into her eyes. Shangguan Liuli bit her lower lip tightly, suppressing the surging anger in her chest as she stubbornly looked at Lung Fengying. "Second prince, don't be cheated by this vixen. She's simply a shameless slut." With a bam, Shangguan Liuli's petite body was sent flying. Yi Qingqian retracted her hand as that usually gentle white lotus face was filled with arrogance, an unconcealable arrogance. "Shangguan Liuli, don't be so shameless when I give you face. Who gave you the right to insult me?" This action made the surrounding students gasp in shock. In their eyes, Yi Qingqian was a pure white lotus. Yi Qingqian was the #1 beauty in Three Spring City. She was beautiful, had high innate talent, had a gentle character, and treated others with courtesy. In other words, She was a big white lotus who gathered all the advantages. This was the first time they saw Yi Qingqian revealing such an arrogant and haughty expression. This was also the first time they saw Yi Qingqian slapping someone without any explanation. Yi Qingluo was also slightly shocked. She squinted her eyes as she stared at Yi Qingqian with interest. It turned out that her big sister, who was like a white lotus, had completely darkened after experiencing this incident. But that's right. His reputation and whatnot were already ruined, no matter how Yi Qingqian acted, or how she acted as a white lotus. The people of Three Springs City wouldn't believe it, and neither would the people of the West Continent. Stealing his sister's fiancé was the same as stealing his sister's fiancé. Rolling around with his sister's fiancé was the same as rolling around with his sister's fiancé. Everything was the truth. There was no way to refute that. It would be better to just turn evil and not bother to wear the hypocritical mask anymore. In any case, he would be scolded for pretending to be innocent. Even if he turned dark, he would still be scolded. Darkening, at least he felt good in his heart, and he didn't have to be so aggrieved. He had to admit that Yi Qingqian's move was extremely good. As though noticing Yi Qingluo's gaze, that arrogant lady's eyebrows rose as her vision shot towards Yi Qingluo. Then, a murderous look flashed across her eyes. She lifted her hand and wiped it across her neck. Her fiery red lips curled into an arrogant, cold smile. Her lips wriggled as she spat out a few words soundlessly. You just wait and see. Yi Qingluo's expression didn't change as she didn't respond to Yi Qingqian's provocation. From the time she heard the high profound class discussing about Yi Qingqian and second princes hooking up, Yi Qingluo guessed that this big sister White Lotus was like a weed with tenacious vitality. Yi Qingqian was still alive. As long as Yi Qingqian was given a chance to make a comeback, she would disregard everything to get this chance. Chapter 637. But what made Yi Qingluo curious was, what conditions did Yi Qingqian set out to attract Lung Fengying's wild ambition? He didn't care about Yi Qingqian's current disreputable reputation, which would affect his current status, and personally sent Yi Qingqian to the academy to build up her reputation. With second prince as her backing, everyone's discussions and ridicule towards Yi Qingqian were more or less restrained. Shangguan Liuli was beaten into a daze. She sat on the ground in a daze, clutching her swollen red cheek, as blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth. Yi Qingqian actually hit him? Yi Qingqian, that slut, actually dared to hit her? Shangguan Liuli was infuriated. With a sudden sound, she sprang up from the ground, as she raised her hand and sent a slap towards Yi Qingqian's face. You slutty vixen! I asked you to hit me. I asked you to use your unrestrained nature to seduce second prince. Shangguan Liuli had always been arrogant and willful. Since young, she had only suffered a loss in Yi Qingluo's hands. At this moment, Yi Qingqian also dared to press on top of her, especially Yi Qingqian, who had snatched away the male god in her heart. Shangguan Liuli instantly shifted her hatred towards Yi Qingluo onto Yi Qingqian. But before she could pounce on her, a figure dashed out from the crowd, blocking Shangguan Liuli's way. Following that, she heard an apologetic voice. Second Prince, eldest Miss Yi, my sister and I had a small conflict today, and I've been suppressing my anger in my heart, so I acted up for no reason, disturbing Second Prince and eldest Miss Yi. It's my sister's fault. I apologize on behalf of my sister. Third brother. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened as she stared in disbelief at the man who was tugging her. Shangguan Fengyi's hand, at a place where no one could see, pinched Shangguan Liuli's flesh fiercely. Shangguan Liuli cried out in pain as her eyes instantly turned red, as she covered her face aggrievedly, shaking off Shangguan Fengyi's hand. Stomping her feet, she turned around and ran away crying. Second Prince, eldest Miss Yi, I'm sorry. Shangguan Fengyi bowed his body slightly. No worries. Lung Feng smiled faintly as he shook his head. Perhaps some of this prince's actions had caused Fifth Miss Shangguan to misunderstand. I'm indebted to Fifth Miss Shangguan's misplaced love. Shangguan Feng's face darkened. Lung Feng, saying these words in front of everyone, totally destroyed Shangguan Liuli's reputation. Shangguan Liuli admired the second prince and was rejected by him? Once the news got out, would Shangguan Liuli still be able to find a husband? Which young master would dare to accept her? If Lung Feng hadn't said these words, Shangguan Feng could still use other words to smooth over Shangguan Liuli's earlier actions. But Lung Feng totally didn't give Shangguan Liuli this chance. Was he standing up for Yi Qingqian? Shangguan Feng was overwhelmed with shock as he subconsciously took a look at Yi Qingqian. But he discovered that Yi Qingqian's pretty face was covered with a layer of arrogant frost, looking at him with a smile that didn't look like a smile. That gaze was filled with a strong warning. She was totally different from the usual Yi Qingqian. It was as though he was a completely different person. Shangguan Feng lowered his head and looked away. He murmured, "Then I shall not disturb second prince and eldest Miss Yi." Saying that, he chased after the direction which Shangguan Liuli ran towards. Lung Feng and Yi Qingqian held hands as he sent Yi Qingqian into the academy before he stopped in his tracks. Standing at the entrance of the academy, he remained silent for a moment before he turned around and returned to the carriage. This action seemed as though he treasured Yi Qingqian a lot. But in Yi Qingluo's eyes, she only felt that Lung Feng was completing a mission which he had discussed with Yi Qingqian. There were no feelings between them. Chapter 638. Standing by the side of the carriage, Lung Feng didn't directly mount the horse. Instead, he stood on the spot and remained silent for quite a while, as his peripheral vision shot towards Yi Qingluo's direction. Then he leaped onto his horse and led a group of people away in a grandiose manner. Yi Qingluo's eyes narrowed as she was slightly astonished. "Elder sister, eldest sister," she. Yi Fengyu frowned as he thought of Yi Qingqian just now and couldn't help but have goosebumps. That kind of Yi Qingqian was totally different from the Yi Qingqian in his memories. "Don't bother about her." Yi Qingluo ruffled Yi Fengyu's hair. "Next time you see her, just avoid her. Now, she doesn't even want to wear that gentle mask anymore. She won't be soft-hearted towards you." Yi Fengyu was stunned. "All right, go in. Don't forget to report to Teacher Guiyu." Yi Qingluo patted his face, grabbed his shoulder, and pushed him towards the school gate. "Teacher Guiyu should be very interested in our 3 days of experience learning." "Sister, what are you going to do?" Kids shouldn't ask too many questions. After sending Yi Fengyu away, Yi Qingluo didn't enter the academy, but blended into the crowd and quietly disappeared from everyone's sight. Everyone's attention was focused on Yi Qingjian and Lung Feng, so naturally no one noticed Yi Qingluo's disappearance. Yi Qingluo arrived at the back alley of the Heavenly Academy with ease. This was the place where she barged into when she first came to the Heavenly Academy. It was also here that he was assassinated by the triplets of Godless Island, the 3 evils of Godless. At this moment, the back alley was still silent, without the slightest sign of life. Yi Qingluo stopped at a dead end as her voice was chilly. "Aren't you looking for me? Why are you hiding? Are you worried about being discovered?" As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of light footsteps came from behind him. Following that, she heard Lung Fengying's gentle voice ringing behind her. "Yes, 7th Mississippi. What's the matter? Second Prince." Yi Qingluo raised her brows and turned around with a playful smile. Earlier, before Lung Feng mounted the horse and left, he specially took a look at her as his lips moved slightly. Yi Qingluo could read lips. He asked her to meet him in the back alley. Coincidentally, she also had something which she wanted to discuss with Lung Fengying. After all, the relationship between them could be considered to be a cooperative one. Seventh young mistress of the night is so intelligent. You should understand why I am looking for you. Lung Fenging was indeed an intelligent man, and right now when he was conversing with Yi Qing Luo, he had automatically changed his self-address to I, indicating his respect towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo covered her mouth and chuckled. Her eyes were glowing. Second Prince didn't say anything. No matter how intelligent I am, I'm not a roundworm in his stomach. Don't you have anything to ask me? Of course there is, but... Yi Qing Luo dragged her words. Will you answer truthfully? Yes. Lung Fenging spat out a word without any hesitation. I owe you a favor, so I will answer whatever questions you ask me. The pair of gentle eyes stared straight at Yi Qing Luo, filled with sincerity, as though he was expressing his determination to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. To tell the truth, before this, she totally had no impression of Lung Fenging at all. It was just that when he was dealing with Lung Fenghua, he deliberately investigated whether there was anyone in the current imperial family who could be on par with Lung Fenghua. From the investigations, Lung Fenging was an extremely mediocre prince. His innate talent was average and his deeds were average, especially under Lung Fenghua's intentional oppression. His entire person could be described as ordinary. As for her, choosing Lung Fenging was based on her direct observation towards the imperial family. Chapter 639. From what Yi Qing Luo thought, Lung Fenging was much more dangerous than Lung Fenghua. The facts had proven that Yi Qing Luo had guessed correctly based on her own view of the royal family. She had taken the right step. However, would their cooperation be affected because of Yi Qing Qian? Yi Qing Luo crossed her arms over her chest. What's the relationship between you and Yi Qing Qian? As you can see, Lung Fenging replied without any hesitation. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched. You call this an answer? What did he mean by the relationship she saw? In other words, no matter what she thought, the relationship was there, and he wouldn't deny it or admit it. You call that a truthful answer? Lung Fenging smiled but didn't say a word. Yi Qing Luo's eyes twitched as she turned around and left. Seventh Miss Yi. Lung Fenging hurriedly blocked Yi Qing Luo's way. Although his facial features were not outstanding, there was a unique charm to his gentle face. I don't mean it in that way, Lung Fenging explained. A cold glint flashed past Yi Qing Luo's eyes as she squinted at the arm in front of her. If you don't have the sincerity to talk to me, then don't waste my time. I'm not that free to play riddles with you here. Lung Fenging was indeed a talent, and his ability was much stronger than Lung Fenghua's. However, for so many years, under the oppression of Lung Fenghua, he was still able to form his own faction. And even after Lung Fenghua fell from power, he was able to obtain a voice of support. This also resulted in his habit of being cautious and secretive. And this point, towards Yi Qing Luo, who liked to be clean and decisive, it was extremely irritating. Since she had chosen to cooperate with Lung Fenging, she had already paved a path for Lung Fenging to quickly destroy Lung Fenghua. He would no longer cooperate with anyone else. Furthermore, in the entire imperial family, who else but him could threaten his position? There was no doubt that the position of crown prince belonged to Lung Fenging. From Yi Qing Luo's point of view, since they were working together, then they should choose to trust each other and work together happily. Whereas until now, Lung Fenging still harbored suspicions towards her. Since they didn't trust each other, there was no need to continue their partnership. Seventh young mistress of the night, of course. I sincerely want to talk to you. Lung Fenging gave a gentle smile as he put down the arm which was placed horizontally in front of Yi Qing Luo. I believe with 7th Miss Ye's intelligence, you will definitely be able to tell that Yi Qing Qian and I are not. That kind of relationship. Reason. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered to beat around the bush with him. Lung Fenging's eyelids drooped down as he shook his head. Forgive me for not being able to say. Can't say. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as her vision swept past his face. Because you want Yi Qing Qian's power. Saying that, Lung Fengying looked at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment, as though he was in shock. How did she know? As expected, Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as her expression turned grave. That's right. Who wouldn't want Yi Qing Qian's power? She was only a teenage girl, but she had already reached the Earth Profound Realm. If she trained well with her talent, she would definitely become a rare genius girl in the world. Who didn't want to keep her for their own use? Especially Yi Qing Qian still had the dark forces as her backing. Thinking about it. Hence, Yi Qing Qian made Lung Fengying sign a soul contract with the dark forces, using the power as bait, making use of Lung Fengying's identity and status to give herself a chance to make a comeback. The current Lung Fengying had just chased Lung Fenghua off the crown prince's position. He urgently needed to do something or use his own ability to prove that he was the only candidate for the crown prince's position. In this era where martial arts were revered and the strong were revered. Chapter 640. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. The curve of her lips was extremely enchanting. Gu Pan's charming eyes raised slightly, outlining a long and narrow evil charm. Second Prince, let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't cultivate your strength on your own, even if you forcefully use it on yourself, it won't be yours in the end. Lung Fengying was stunned as a glint circulated in his eyes. He had totally not expected that before he even said anything, Yi Qing Luo had already guessed everything. Don't use this kind of judging gaze to size me up. I'm not your enemy. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes. Of course, we will not be in a cooperative relationship. Lung Fengying was just about to open his mouth when he stopped. Seventh young Miss Yi, aren't we? The moment you got together with Yi Qing Qian, the cooperation between us had ended. Yi Qing Luo said straightforwardly, Of course, you don't need to have any psychological burden. I will help you not because I want to. Yes, at the end of the day, they were just using each other. Lung Fenghua wanted to harm her. Yi Qing Qian wanted to return the scheme to her. She wanted to retaliate, and it wasn't as simple as killing the other party. Instead, it was to crush the opponent's mentality and destroy the things that they cared about bit by bit. As for Lung Fengying, he was just a chess piece to destroy Lung Fenghua. Seventh young Miss Yi. Lung Fengying's gentle brows creased slightly as his tone turned anxious. We can have a good talk. He was an intelligent man and naturally understood that if he became enemies with Yi Qing Luo, it would mean adding another strong opponent. His current foundation wasn't stable, and since Yi Qing Luo was able to destroy Lung Fenghua, she naturally had the ability to destroy him. Lung Fengying had also heard from Yi Qing Qian that Yi Qing Luo was a person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. It was definitely unwise to make an enemy out of her at this critical juncture. Thinking of this, Lung Fengying's tone turned even gentler. Seventh young Miss Kindness towards me 2 days ago. I have always remembered it in my heart. Seventh young Miss, please give me a chance to repay you, all right? Not waiting for him to finish, Yi Qing Luo had already interrupted him. Let Yi Qing Qian marry Lung Fenghua and leave 3 Spring City together. Lung Fengying's eyes dimmed slightly as his fingers clenched into a fist. After a long while, he slowly shook his head. Seventh Miss, other than this, I can agree to any other request. Yi Qing Luo scoffed lightly as she turned around and walked towards the front of the alley. Hearing the footsteps of the man behind her, she raised her hand and waved. Apart from this request, I don't need your help. The footsteps stopped. Yi Qing Luo continued. You can be assured that I have no interest in your royal family's matters. You can do whatever you like, but... She glanced sideways and her peripheral vision fell onto Lung Fengying as a cold intent flashed past her narrow and long eyes. If your war implicates my people, then don't blame me for not showing any mercy. Lung Fengying was stunned on the spot. That gaze, even though it was only a glance, caused one to shudder with fear. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. This was what Yi Qing Luo conveyed to him. As long as he, or Yi Qing Qian, didn't offend her, she didn't have the time to go against them. This woman's personality was really hard to fathom. Lung Feng clenched his fists tightly as he watched Yi Qing Luo leave, before he silently left the back alley. After Yi Qing Luo entered the academy, she didn't return to the devil class, but headed straight towards the library pavilion. Today was the day when the students returned to the academy, and quite a number of students headed over to the library pavilion to borrow books to read, or to verify the homework which the masters had assigned for the past 3 days. Chapter 641. Yi Qing Luo's arrival made the entire library pavilion fall into a state of silence. Many students' gazes were fixed on Yi Qing Luo. There were groups of students who started to discuss about 3 Springs sex matters in hushed voices. Especially earlier, the news of Yi Qing Qian being personally sent to the academy by Lung Feng had already spread throughout the entire academy. Even Yi Qing Luo was being pointed at. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about other people's views as she walked towards the direction of the 2nd floor. But she had just stepped onto the 1st step when she heard someone smashing a book on the table. "Student Yi Qing Luo, don't you know the rules?" "Qing Qian." Another timid voice was heard. Yi Qing Luo turned her head and saw Yi Qing Qian standing beside a wooden table in the Magical Beast category book section. Her pretty face was cold, as though she was purely reminding Yi Qing Luo. And beside her were 5 to 6 high profound class female students and Lu Xuelon, who was staring at Yi Qing Luo with a terrified expression. Vice President, towards those who don't abide by the academy's rules, how should the faculty council punish them? Yi Qing Qian didn't see the fear in Lu Xuelon's eyes as she looked at Lu Xuelon with a smile. This was obviously directed at Yi Qing Luo. This was indeed directed at Yi Qing Luo. "Qing Qian." Lu Xuelon's face turned slightly pale as her tone raised as she berated. "Student Yi Qing Luo is a new student and seldom comes to the library pavilion, so naturally she doesn't know the rules here." Yi Qing Qian's reputation was already in a mess during this holiday. No matter where she went, she was given the title of slut. But after she returned to the academy, she seemed to have changed into a different person, totally not bothered about the others pointing fingers at her. Furthermore, she was so overbearing that even she couldn't suppress Yi Qing Qian. Yi Qing Qian's red lips were like flames as her bright smile was different from the usual gentle like water. But it was covered with a layer of threatening coldness. Really? Then what vice president means is, as long as you are a new student, you can casually violate the academy's rules? I don't mean it in that way. Lu Xuelon's throat choked, and under Yi Qing Qian's gaze, her legs turned soft. What was going on? Why did Yi Qing Qian suddenly become so gloomy? This pair of sisters from the Yi clan, each was weirder than the other. It's precisely because she's a new student and has violated the academy's rules once, so she should be punished as a warning to others. Yi Qing Qian's voice grew colder and colder as she walked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. The students in the library didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He stared dumbfoundedly at the scene of the Yi sisters killing each other. They were all sighing silently in their hearts. Surely this Yi Qing Qian couldn't have been driven crazy because her reputation was in a mess. Yi Qing Qian was the White Lotus representative in everyone's hearts. His ferocious appearance was really hard to accept for a moment. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as she stared at the lady who was walking nearer to her, as her slightly creased brows rose. "Elder sister is really free." The closer Yi Qing Qian got, the clearer Yi Qing Luo could see the faint black qi in her eyes. The dark force's energy was in Yi Qing Qian's body. However, what made Yi Qing Luo curious was this dark force's power didn't seem to be the kind that controlled Yi Qingling and Yu Qipeng, but it was obediently attached to Yi Qing Qian's body. Instead, it seemed like it had already merged into one with Yi Qing Qian, becoming a power that Yi Qing Qian could use. Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo recalled the question she asked Lung Fengying. Yi Qing Qian used the dark force and Lung Fengying as bait to cooperate with him. Chapter 642. Yi Qing Qian's relationship with the dark forces, not simple. According to the rules of the library pavilion, other than the students from the high profound class and the class of gods who can enter the second level of the library pavilion, the students from the middle and lower classes can only read books on the first level of the library pavilion. Students like you, devil class, you don't even have the qualifications to enter the library pavilion. Yi Qing Jian raised her chin in disdain as she spat out the rules of the library pavilion word by word. Yi Qing Luo blinked her eyes as her long eyelashes fluttered, looking extremely innocent, but I've already been to the second story of the library pavilion twice. Yi Qing Qian's face instantly turned black. Indeed, Yi Qing Luo had been to the second story of the library pavilion twice. However, that did not mean that she was qualified to go up to the second floor of the library pavilion. Instead, he was punished by the instructor to tidy up the library. But he had not expected this punishment to become Yi Qing Luo's capital to flaunt her prowess. Yi Qing Qian was so infuriated that the black qi in her eyes grew thicker, as her eyes were filled with hatred, except for special circumstances before you have obtained the qualification to enter the second story of the library pavilion. Barging in without permission is against the rules of the library pavilion. Towards Yi Qing Luo, how could she not hate her? She was obviously the #1 beauty of the Three Springs City, the hope of the Three Springs sect, the goddess of the entire academy. Now, when everyone saw her, they would look at her with disdain. Behind her back, they kept pointing fingers at her and mocking her for being a slut. They mocked her for selling her body and herself in order to climb to a higher position. Obviously, it was Lung Fenghua who seduced her first. It was Lung Fenghua who lied to her that he would marry her, give her the position of crown princess, and make her the future emperor-empress. Obviously, from the beginning to the end, she only had Lung Fenghua as a man. She and Lung Fengying were innocent. However, no one would believe her. In fact, as long as a man spoke to her or greeted her, people would stare at them and gossip about their illicit relationship. This feeling, who could stand it? Although the days when she wore a mask in the past were very tiring, very tiring. However, no matter how tired he was in the past, his heart was content. She liked the feeling of people looking at her with admiration in their eyes. He liked the feeling of standing at the top of the clouds and being praised. But now, she had fallen from the clouds into the abyss of hell and could no longer climb back up. He was back to being himself and no longer had to wear a mask. But she wasn't happy. She couldn't accept it. There was a feeling of emptiness in his chest. All these were thanks to Yi Qing Luo. It was Yi Qing Luo who caused her to become like this. The more he thought about it, the more resentment he felt in his heart. Yi Qing Qian couldn't help but raise her hand as she fiercely slapped Yi Qing Luo's calm and composed face. She wanted to destroy the face, the owner of the face. He wanted to dismember Yi Qing Luo into 1,000 pieces so that she would never be able to reincarnate. That intense hatred was naturally felt by Yi Qing Luo. Her eyes overflowed with ridicule as she looked at Yi Qing Qian's venomous eyes. When she raised her palm to swing towards her face, she directly raised her leg and kicked towards Yi Qing Qian's chest. Yi Qing Qian's action was totally subconscious, and by the time she reacted and tried to avoid it, a sharp pain had already spread from her chest, and she was like a kite with a broken string, flying out directly. Her eyes were filled with shock. When she landed on the ground, she quickly slammed her palm against the ground. His body spun a few times in the air before he stabilized his footing. Chapter 643. The library pavilion's rules are set by you? Just because you say I don't have the right to enter doesn't mean I can't enter? Are you from the faculty council? Vice President Lu Dai didn't even say a word. What are you butting in for? Question after question, like a bombardment, smashed towards Yi Qingqian with a pitter-patter. Yi Qingluo's eyes were filled with ridicule as her lips curled upwards. You can't go up to the second story of the library pavilion, but I can go up without any obstruction. Do you believe me? Yi Qingqian clutched her chest. Yi Qingluo's kick was totally without any reservation. Yes, as a high profound class student. Even if Yi Qingqian wanted to go up to the second story of the library pavilion, she had to get the approval from the library pavilion's management and obtain the time certificate to enter the second story. She was in so much pain that her brows creased into a bundle. Her features were sinister as she stared fiercely at Yi Qingluo. I'd like to see how you're going to go up to the second story of the library pavilion. To go up to the second story of the library pavilion, one must get the library pavilion's management to open the door. Yi Qingluo, who didn't have the right to enter, how would the manager possibly open the door for her? Want to make a bet? Yi Qingluo's brows rose as she looked at her with a smile, which didn't look like a smile. Yi Qingqian's pupils contracted slightly. Seeing Yi Qingluo's expression, her heart suddenly stopped, somehow feeling that there seemed to be a trap. Don't dare! Yi Qingluo sarcastically tugged her lips. If you don't have the guts, then don't be a road-blocking dog. Saying that, Yi Qingluo turned around and walked towards the second story of the library pavilion. That sarcastic smile pricked Yi Qingqian's eyes. Her slender fingers clutched her sleeves tightly as her pretty face contorted. All right, I'll bet with you. She absolutely didn't believe that Yi Qingluo had the right to enter the second story of the library pavilion. Who didn't know how to put on an act? Yi Qingluo, who had already stepped onto the second-story staircase, had a flash of astonishment in her eyes as she quickly regained her original calmness and insolence. This astonishment was coincidentally caught by Yi Qingqian. Indeed, she was putting on an act. She became even more complacent. Say, how do you want to bet? This is the academy. If you want to bet money or something else, it will affect the atmosphere of the academy. Why don't you bet on something else? A clear voice came from the crowd. A slender figure walked out from the mantra book area. Xiaoyu! Yi Qingluo's eyes lit up. Ever since the dormitory was destroyed, she and Lu Xiaoyu rarely met. Lu Xiaoyu swaggered over with a palm-sized pastry in her hand. As she chewed on the pastry, she said mischievously, if Qingluo enters the second story, then you will kneel down in front of everyone and crawl all the way to the door, shouting, "Good sister." I'm wrong 3 times. How about that? As soon as he said this, all the students in the library drew in a breath of cold air. This gamble, it was even more exciting than gambling. He was gambling with his pride. Xiaoyu, wouldn't this bet date be too? Yi Qingluo's eyes widened as she quickly walked down the stairs and grabbed Lu Xiaoyu's arm. I'm fine. Lu Xiaoyu waved her hand with a calm face. I have just returned to the academy, so I need something happy to stimulate the students' passion for learning. Just treat it as entertainment. But I'll bet. Not waiting for Yi Qingluo to finish stammering, Yi Qingjian had already opened her mouth. At this moment, Yi Qingjian had already determined that Yi Qingluo was putting on an act. She wanted Yi Qingluo to kneel down in front of everyone, and wanted Yi Qingluo to crawl out of the library pavilion's entrance. She wanted Yi Qingluo to not be able to lift her head up in front of everyone. Bet, bet, bet. The surrounding students saw Yi Qingjian nodding her head without any hesitation, and this bet was so interesting. So they were all interested. All of them cheered with their arms raised. Chapter 644. Yi Qingluo laughed lightly, full of sarcasm. I'm thinking for eldest sister's reputation. Her words paused, as though she had misspoken, as she covered her pink lips and shook her head. I forgot. Eldest sister has no reputation to speak of. These words pierced Yi Qingqian's smile as it froze on her face. Her fingers clenched tightly as the veins on her forehead popped out. Stop the nonsense! Are you going to bet or not? Eldest sister is already embarrassed enough. Are you sure you want to bet so much? Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as she sneered at her. Moreover, whether I go up to the second story of the library pavilion or not has nothing to do with eldest sister. Yi Qingqian was pierced by Yi Qing Luo's words, as her pretty face was covered with a layer of frost. The black qi in the depths of her beautiful eyes formed a whirlpool. Student Yi Qing Luo, this is the academy. I cannot protect you in front of so many students just because you're my sister. Yi Qingqian clenched her teeth fiercely. If you can go up without any obstruction, I will kneel down right now. Looked like Yi Qingqian had hardened her heart to embarrass Yi Qing Luo in public. Yi Qing Luo curled her lips in disdain as she scoffed, thinking of using the same method to ruin her reputation. Was it that easy? Even if her reputation was in a mess and her temperament had a huge change, but this shell was still this shell. Her intelligence was still low. How many times had she suffered losses in her hands? But she still didn't know how to restrain herself. Not a single bit of improvement. Yi Qing Luo didn't say anything more, as her lips hung an enchanting smile as she turned around and walked up the stairs. All the students in the library pavilion had their gazes concentrated on Yi Qing Luo. Seeing her step by step, she walked up to the entrance of the second story of the library pavilion and stopped. The door of the second story of the library pavilion was carved with numerous totems of books, and on the door handle hung a fist-sized lock. There were only 2 keys to open this lock. One was in the director's hand, and the other was in the library pavilion administrator's hand. Yi Qingqian's face was filled with an unconcealable smile. Without the key, how would Yi Qing Luo enter? By the time the administrator discovered that all the students had created such a ruckus in the library pavilion, he would definitely throw the troublemaker, Yi Qing Luo, out directly. By then, Yi Qing Luo would kneel down and complete the bet. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. Teacher, help me open the door to the second story. Yi Qing Luo stood in front of the door and shouted. Teacher? Who was it? The students looked left and right, puzzled. The meaning of teacher was different from teacher. The headmaster was the one who taught and guided the students. As for teachers, it was to express the respect a student had for a certain elder in the academy. Who was this teacher he was referring to? Just as everyone was guessing, they heard a deafening voice that sounded like a great bell coming from afar. He's here! He's here! Soon after, the librarian of the book collection pavilion walked over with big strides. That fierce face didn't have the usual irritation and anger. A manager. The students were astonished as they looked at the administrator who had always had a bad temper and was always shouting at the slightest thing, walking towards Yi Qing Luo. Then the librarian smiled. Student Yi, you came to the library to study as soon as you arrived. What a diligent child. What the hell? This was definitely a F** king hallucination. The fierce and hot-tempered administrator, actually smiled at Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qingqian's face instantly turned pale. She staggered backwards a few steps, but luckily she was supported by the high profound class students in time. She had been tricked by Yi Qing Luo again? The administrator's attitude was obviously on Yi Qing Luo's side. Chapter 645. Abuse of Authority. The administrator's gaze shifted onto Yi Qingqian's face as his expression turned ferocious. Great! Since you say I'm abusing my authority, then report me to the director right now. Yi Qingqian's ears were ringing from the booming voice. Her petite figure swayed slightly as she looked at Yi Qing Luo and shook her head in disbelief. Impossible! She's a waste-class, devil-class student. She has no right to go to the second story of the library pavilion. Whether I have the right or not, it's not up to you to decide. The administrator took out the key and directly opened the door to the second story. It's because there are meddlesome students like you, disturbing the other students from reading and discussing their assignments. After the door to the second story opened, the administrator's tall and sturdy body moved to one side as he smiled at Yi-Ching Luo. "Student Yi, go in first, don't let." He paused and gave a silly laugh. "Don't wait too long." Yi-Ching Luo's motive for going to the second story of the library pavilion was definitely to meet Ghost Doctor. The administrator naturally didn't dare to stop her. Even if this matter reached the director, he wasn't afraid. Ghost Doctor had personally acknowledged her as his disciple, so the director couldn't stop her. Ever since he knew that Yi-Ching Luo was Ghost Doctor's disciple, the administrator became more and more respectful towards her. Of course, there was also his fondness towards Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo had once saved his pair of eyes from Ghost Doctor's hands. Yi-Ching Luo was the first person who called him teacher. In Heavenly Academy, he had been managing the library pavilion for decades. Wasn't it his fondness towards the academy and his fondness towards these books which persisted till now? In his eyes, the students in the academy who entered the library pavilion were considered as his students. However, the Heavenly Academy had gathered elite students from all over the world. All of them had distinguished statuses and had been looking down on others since young. When they arrived at the library pavilion, no one paid any attention to him, only treating him as a librarian. It was to the extent that later on, the students who came to the library pavilion didn't pay any attention to him. As time went by, the administrator began to put on a ferocious expression to intimidate the students. But in this way, he had completely lost the students' respect towards him. "Thank you, teacher administrator." Yi-Ching Luo's smile turned gentle. She knew that right from the start, the administrator had noticed the conflict here. The administrator was probably here to dissuade them. After that, he heard her proposing a bet with Yi-Ching Qian and understood what she meant, so he purposely didn't appear. The administrator waved his hand. "It's nothing." The two of them exchanged words one after another, making the surrounding students keep on guessing the relationship between Yi-Ching Luo and the administrator. As for Yi-Ching Qian, her face was so pale that she almost collapsed onto the ground. The high profound class students who were supporting her let go of her upon seeing the administrator's appearance and fled from the crowd's attention. "Elder sister, I'm still waiting for you to kneel down, crawl to the library pavilion's entrance, and shout, 'I'm wrong,' 3 times to me." Yi-Ching Luo crossed her arms in front of her chest as she gave an amused smile. This slut, sure enough, he was plotting against her. Yi-Ching Qian stared resentfully at Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo and the administrator knew each other, so she could make the administrator abuse his power. But Yi-Ching Luo intentionally revealed that kind of expression to confuse her judgment. How could she possibly kneel? How could she possibly admit her mistake to Yi-Ching Luo? "Yo, elder sister, are you thinking of going back on your words?" Yi-Ching Luo's eyes blinked as her index finger pressed against her pink lips. As she nodded thoughtfully, "I had long guessed that elder sister would not admit it. After all, elder sister is used to lying." Chapter 646. The students all nodded their heads in agreement. Yi-Ching Qian was able to snatch her sister's fiancé and even seduce her sister's fiancé's biological brother. What face did she have? Overbearingly wanting to bet with Yi-Ching Luo. After she lost, she refused to admit to it and wanted to go back on her words. She was really invincible when one was shameless. The students' faces were filled with disdain as they looked at Yi-Ching Qian with disgust. This kind of improper 3 views matter, even if it was in the 21st century, was something that the world would not tolerate. Moreover, it was in Nirvana realm. Even if Yi-Ching Qian had Lung Fengying's protection, it was unable to change other people's impression of her. Disgust was disgust. Disgust was disgust. They seemed to have forgotten that the one who suggested the bet was Yi-Ching Luo. This point no one would care about. How can we forget about it? Hasn't Master always taught us to be honest and trustworthy? Especially student Yi Qingqian is a high profound class student and is the Academy's role model. If student Yi Qingqian were to take the lead and teach the other students how to be sore losers and turn hostile. Lu Xiaoyu gave a light humph as she used Yi Qingqian's original words to counter. If this were to spread to the faculty council or the director's ears, student Yi Qingqian would probably have to bear the responsibility. That's right. As a high profound class student, every action and action represents the high profound class, represents the Heavenly Academy. We low profound class students like to imitate the high profound class students' mannerisms and actions. Student Yi Qingqian is teaching us what's called turning hostile and turning hostile. When I saw Yi Qingqian coming to the academy, I only thought that her face was extremely thick, but now I know that she totally has no face at all. One by one, the students chimed in passionately. Yi Qingqian's beautiful eyes turned gloomy as she clenched her fists so tightly that her fingers turned white and green veins popped out on her forehead. Lu Shuelon heard the students around her shouting intensely as her expression turned gloomy. Qingqian, you're her elder sister, so there's no need to kneel down. Just apologize to her. If these students were to continue making a ruckus, the high profound class's reputation would be completely ruined. Shut up. Yi Qingqian glanced at Lu Shuelon coldly as her eyes turned chilly. Lu Shuelon was shocked as a flash of astonishment flashed past her eyes. Yi Qingqian dared to shout at her? Ever since she became the substitute vice president of the faculty council, no one dared to speak loudly to her. Lu Shuelon's face instantly turned pale. Yi Qingqian. Say that again. Scram. Yi Qingqian's sinister facial features revealed a chilly intent as her murderous intent was revealed. Flicking her sleeves, she turned around and headed towards the direction of the library pavilion's entrance. She walked very fast, wanting to escape from this place where everyone was making fun of her and mocking her. Lu Shuelon was thoroughly enraged. Yi Qingqian's arrogance was simply a slap on her face. If she didn't teach Yi Qingqian a harsh lesson in front of everyone, wouldn't others think that she, the acting vice president, was easy to bully? Yi Qingqian, you dare to insult the staff of the faculty council. Now I will represent the faculty council to bring you to the faculty council and let you recall every rule of the Heavenly Academy. Lu Shuelon took quick steps forward and was just about to stop Yi Qingqian. But he heard Yi Qingqian suddenly moaning in pain as her knees fell heavily onto the ground. It was indeed heavy. When the surrounding students heard the sound of kneeling onto the ground, they all felt a pain in their knees, a heart-wrenching pain. Yi Qingqian's hands were propped up on the ground as her palms were rubbed till a bloody scar appeared. She was in so much pain that her face was filled with tears as her expression was sinister. Lu Shuelon was also stunned by this intense sound of kneeling onto the ground as she stood rooted to the ground, not knowing what to do as she looked at Yi Qingqian. Yi Qing Luo. Chapter 647. A cornered dog will jump over the wall. Don't force me. That gaze was filled with murderous intent. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose as she gave a light smile. Then why don't you jump for me to take a look? You. Was she scolding her as a dog in a roundabout way? Yi Qingqian gritted her teeth so hard that they almost broke as the black chi in her eyes continued to revolve around her pupils, gathering. Enough! You're making a ruckus in the library pavilion. What a scandal! Suddenly, an imposing voice was heard from the entrance of the library pavilion, filled with extreme coldness. The students' gazes followed the voice and saw two figures walking in from the entrance. The lady's figure was tall and slender. Her cold face was covered with frost, emitting an awe-inspiring aura. The man's figure was slender, beautiful, and tall. That face was exquisite and refined, his expression so gentle as though water could be squeezed out of it. This kind of cultured elegance came from his bones. It wasn't the kind of gentleness that Lung Fengying showed on his face. the lady, Lu Shuiyu, the man, Faculty Council President, Si Yanmu. These two appeared at the same time, causing all the students to exclaim in shock. They were still young, their attention was too easily attracted by others, and their emotions were easily led by others. Just a second ago, they were still filled with righteous indignation, berating Yi Qingqian for being shameless, but the next second they were already respectfully greeting Si Yanmu, the president of the Faculty Council. This mysterious and unfathomable, elusive and elusive Sir President. Today, he actually took the initiative to appear in public. The students seemed as though they were injected with chicken blood, as they were extremely excited. President, sister. Lu Shuilan trembled when she saw the both of them walking in together, as she timidly shrunk to one side. Lu Shuiyu didn't bother about Lu Shuilan, only using her icy cold gaze, sweeping past the crowd, finally falling onto Yi Qing Luo. You again. Yo, isn't this Vice President? Yi Qing Luo's tone was filled with sarcasm. Lu Shuiyu's cold eyes narrowed slightly. Yi Qing Luo, the library pavilion is an important place for students to read and learn, not a place for you to be competitive. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laughed out. Vice President, this sentence you should say to the person kneeling beside you. Lu Shuiyu frowned, lowering her head to look at Yi Qingqian, who was kneeling not too far away. Not knowing if it was because of anger or pain, Yi Qingqian's delicate body kept trembling. A few strands of her meticulously coiffed hair had become disheveled, sticking to her sweaty cheeks. He looked to be in an extremely sorry state. Lu Shuiyu's face sunk as she walked over and bent down to help her up. As he helped her up, he shot a gloomy glare at Yi Qing Luo, as though he was interrogating her. Vice President, don't worry. As for me, I'm broad-minded and magnanimous. I won't bicker with my elder sister. Yi Qing Luo blinked her innocent eyes as she smiled charmingly. What's more, eldest sister has already knelt down to apologize. Let's just forget about this matter. His words caused the corners of everyone's lips to twitch uncontrollably. Yi Qingqian almost spat out a mouthful of blood that was stuck in her throat. Calling her shameless? Who's the real shameless one here? It had reached the pinnacle of shamelessness. Okay, gambling is strictly prohibited in the academy. Lu Shuiyu berated in a deep voice. This time because you didn't gamble with money or anything overboard. The faculty council will not pursue further. But don't do it again. After all, she was the vice president for 5 years, and her prestige was right there. The moment Lu Shuiyu spoke, the entire library pavilion turned silent. Chapter 648. A series of arrangements were made in an orderly manner. After Yi Qingqian was carried down, the atmosphere in the entire library pavilion was still chilly and a little scary. Yi Qing Luo remained calm and unruffled as she squinted her eyes, as her back leaned against the second story's door, as she shot a glance at Lu Shuiyu. This Lu Shuiyu was indeed more suitable for this position than Lu Shuilan. This kind of domineering and dignified aura destined her to be a leader. Lu Shuiyu was smart enough. After fighting with her a few times, Lu Shuiyu had a rough idea of her character. He knew that at this time, he could not drag the matter onto her. Otherwise, it would be like a snowball, rolling bigger and bigger. So when Lu Shuiyu interfered in this matter, it was a series of preaching. Every single word and sentence was reasonable, and she didn't intentionally target Yi Qing Luo. Not only had she minimized the matter, she had also successfully covered up the matter of Yi Qingqian refusing to acknowledge the bet. You want to say that Yi Qingqian can't afford to lose? Didn't he kneel? As for why he didn't crawl to the door and shout, "My dear sister, I was wrong," it was because Lu Shuiyu had arrived in time to resolve this farce. If she were to stop Lu Shuiyu and not let Yi Qingjian leave, if this matter were to spread to the other students' ears, it would only make them feel that Yi Qing Luo was overbearing, forcing their own eldest sister to kneel down in public. They might even feel that Yi Qing Luo was narrow-minded and didn't know how to think for 3 Spring Sect. After all, Yi Qingqian was the daughter of the Three Springs sect. Wouldn't the Three Springs sect be even more humiliated? He had to admit that Lu Shueyu's move was very good. What are you still doing here? Lu Shueyu glared at the students around her. As soon as he finished speaking, the students immediately dispersed. Lu Xiaoyu also left under Yi Qingluo's hint, turning back every 3 steps. Only the few of them were left at the top of the stairs. Lu Shueyu frowned and turned her head to look at her younger sister, whose face was pale and whose eyes were filled with fear. Shuelanyu. She paused and sighed helplessly. Elder sister, I didn't do it on purpose. Lu Shuelan lowered her head. She had always been afraid of her elder sister. Lu Shueyu was too outstanding. She was so outstanding that the entire Lu family only had eyes for Lu Xue. Ever since she was young, Lu Shuelan had grown up under Lu Shueyu's shadow. She was afraid of the powerful Lu Shueyu and hated the powerful Lu Shueyu. Acting vice president, I have already discussed it with the elders. Thank you for your hard work for the time being. Si Yanmu, who had been silent the whole time, said with a warm smile. Lu Shuelan's body slightly swayed, and her face instantly became deathly pale. This is removing her from her position as acting vice president. Did he intend to make Lu Shueyu the vice president again? Then what was all the hard work she had put in these past few days? In fact, everyone knew very well in their hearts. Lu Shueyu and Si Yanmu appeared together in public. What did it indicate? It was obvious. However, Lu Shuelan still couldn't accept this news when she heard it. Little sister, you've worked hard. Lu Shueyu gently hugged Lu Shuelan's shoulder and patted it. Lu Shuelan's body trembled. She raised her eyes to look at Lu Shueyu and suddenly chuckled. She pushed Lu Shueyu away and ran out of the library. Yi Qingluo kept a teasing smile on her face as she stared at them. Looked like it wasn't only her Yi family's brothers and sisters who had hidden turbulence. The other families were the same. Student Yi Qingluo, in future, please continue to take care of me. Lu Shueyu met Yi Qingluo's gaze as her red lips were dyed with a smile. Chapter 649. The minute she stepped onto the second story of the library pavilion, the door was shut. Yi Qingluo walked directly into the pill refining room. Pushing the door open, Zhang Xian walked into the pill refinery and looked around. It was a mess, as if someone had ransacked the place. She didn't see Ghost Doctor anywhere. Yi Qingluo had nothing else to do, so she rolled up her sleeves and started to tidy up the pill refining room. Gradually, she had already sorted out a pattern, and the movements of her hands became faster and faster towards these medicinal herbs in the pill refining room. She was able to accurately call out their names, as well as their effects and where they were grown. Just 1 hour later, the entire pill refining room had once again regained its tidy and clean look. Ghost Doctor had not returned yet. Yi Qingluo guessed that Ghost Doctor might be refining pills in the secret room. Refining a pill was indeed a matter that required a lot of mental and physical effort. She found a few books on concocting medicine on the bookshelf and started to read. Profound Ice Immortal Root and Infant Grass had already been taken away by her, so she could start refining the pill for Ziling that Lass's legs. Thinking of that Lass, she hadn't had the chance to meet her when she returned to the Yi family during the holidays, so she wondered how she was doing now. Yi Qingluo thought of Ziling limping as she walked towards her step by step, as she hid the complicated emotions in her eyes and buried her head to read the books. For Ziling, she must achieve 100% success rate. Unknowingly, time flew past. Yi Qingluo had already finished reading 2 pill refining books and was preparing to take the 3rd book when she heard the pill refining room's door being pushed open. Senior Ghost Doctor. Yi Qingluo smiled as she turned back to greet him, but she heard a sound of a heavy object falling onto the ground. Ghost doctor leaned against the wall as he sat on the ground. That white robe fluttered, and his right sleeve was already stained with blood. Yi Ching Luo immediately put down the book in her hands and walked over in quick steps. "Senior Ghost Doctor!" "Close the door." Ghost Doctor's pale old face was drained of blood. He leaned against the wall and shifted to the side, revealing the half-open door. His right sleeve followed his movement and started to ooze more blood. Yi Ching Luo speedily closed the door and used one hand to support Ghost Doctor's body from the left side, supporting him to the table to lie down. Yi Ching Luo's expression was solemn as she speedily tapped on Ghost Doctor's acupoint twice, and after the blood stopped, she got up and walked to the other table. Soon he came over with some gauze and some powder to stop the bleeding. Yi Ching Luo buried her head and started treating Ghost Doctor's wound. The Ghost Doctor's shoulder had been pierced by a sharp weapon. His flesh had been flipped over, and his white bone could be seen. It looked extremely horrifying. Yi Ching Luo's slender brows creased, as she had many questions in her mind, but she didn't open her mouth to ask. The Ghost Doctor herself was extremely powerful. There were probably less than 5 people in the entire West Continent who could injure the Ghost Doctor. Who could it be that could injure the Ghost Doctor? Ghost Doctor narrowed his old eyes as he stared deeply at Yi Ching Luo. This little girl was indeed different from ordinary girls. When he first noticed her, it was because of her talent in alchemy and her outstanding memory that allowed her to complete his tasks in the shortest time possible. Of course, the main reason why he accepted her as a disciple was because of the teleportation secret technique she displayed. Now he truly felt that it wasn't a bad idea to have a disciple by his side. This girl was too smart to ask questions that she shouldn't. She knew when to advance and when to retreat, and was sensible. Looking at the way she bandaged his wound and the way she applied the medicine, it was accurate and skilled. But moments later, after the acupoint was released, the bleeding from the wound had already stopped. "Senior Ghost Doctor, go change your clothes." Yi Ching Luo kept the gauze and medicinal herbs. Chapter 650. Ghost Doctor slowly straightened his body. The long robe on him, as it was missing the right sleeve, looked extremely loose. He narrowed his eyes as he took a look at the bandage on his shoulder. This wound was bandaged very well. The medicine used and the dosage were extremely accurate. Not only did it speedily stop the bleeding, it also stopped the pain. As long as the range of movement wasn't too big, the wound on his shoulder didn't feel any bit of pain. He had taken in a disciple. What a treasure. Ghost Doctor went to the secret room to change his clothes, while Yi Ching Luo cleaned up the messy table, as well as the bloodstains on the ground. After she finished cleaning, she still hadn't seen Ghost Doctor return. Yi Ching Luo frowned. Could it be that, because of his shoulder injury, he couldn't even change his clothes? Just as she was about to ask Ghost Doctor if he needed any help, she saw Ghost Doctor, who had already changed into a loose white robe, walking out. He who had changed his clothes had his hair combed again. Other than his slightly pale complexion, he looked much more spirited. "Senior Ghost Doctor, can I enter?" Yi Ching Luo pointed to the secret room. The secret room was Ghost Doctor's secret base. It was the place to refine pills. Other than the first time Yi Ching Luo entered the secret room, after she accidentally fell down, she was forbidden from entering the secret room. After all, to an alchemist, the secret room to refine pills was an extremely important place. Ghost Doctor nodded his head slightly as he turned around and walked back. Yi Ching Luo followed closely. After entering the secret room, Yi Ching Luo didn't act like what Ghost Doctor had imagined, to borrow his pill furnace to refine pills. Instead, she walked directly to the side of the blood-stained robe which he had changed out of, as she bent down to pick up the robe. Following that, Yi Ching Luo took a spark from the torch at the corner of the secret room and burnt that robe. Ghost Doctor's pupils contracted slightly as he went into a daze for a moment, as he concealed the deep thoughts in his eyes. This young lady was really meticulous in her thoughts. As though noticing Ghost Doctor's gaze, the young lady who was burning the robe glanced sideways as she smiled. Senior Ghost Doctor came back injured and asked me to close the door of the pill refining room. Apparently you don't want anyone to know about your injury, or perhaps you're avoiding someone's eyes and ears. The young lady's clear, sweet voice was gentle and melodious. This blood-stained shirt will expose the fact that you're injured. Burning it is the best way. Yi Qing Luo watched as the white robe was burnt to ashes before she swept the ashes to the bottom of the cauldron and slowly stood up. You don't want to ask me? The Ghost Doctor looked curiously at the calm young girl. At this moment, the Ghost Doctor no longer had her usual coldness and impatience. Yi Qing Luo shook her head as she replied calmly, "To be able to hurt Senior Ghost Doctor, he must be someone whom I can't afford to offend. I'm not able to seek revenge for Senior Ghost Doctor, and will bring about a fatal disaster to myself, so I might as well not know anything at all. The more you know, the faster you die." Before she had enough power, even if she knew the person who had hurt the Ghost Doctor and knew the grudge between the Ghost Doctor and that person, there was nothing she could do. Ha, what an interesting girl. The Ghost Doctor laughed as he shook his head. This smile tugged at the muscles on his shoulders, causing him to feel a faint pain. "Little girl, you came to look for me as soon as you entered the academy. What's the matter?" Perhaps it was because of his injury, or perhaps it was because of the change in his view towards Yi Qing Luo, but the Ghost Doctor's expression faintly revealed some amiability. Yi Qing Luo nodded. "I want to ask, does Senior Ghost Doctor know? 10 years ago, the god thief who had once stormed the Nirvana realm, but had fallen in Death God Castle?" Chapter 651. After Ghost Doctor saw her executing the blink movement, he recognized the blink movement secret art one glance and told her the origin of the blink movement secret art. Whereas God Thief also recognized the blink movement secret art at one glance, Yi Qing Luo was clear that there was actually no connection between the two. But not knowing why, she somehow felt that Ghost Doctor and God Thief seemed to have the same emotions and feeling towards this blink movement secret art. She wondered if it was a misperception. Yi Qing Luo had her doubts, so she might as well ask Ghost Doctor directly. On hearing the two words, God Thief, Ghost Doctor's eyes flashed slightly as he replied without any hesitation, "Never heard of him." Yi Qing Luo didn't ask any further. Ghost Doctor had never heard of God Thief's name before, which was very normal. Even Di Emotien's reputation was just heard of, so it was imaginable how much of an otaku Ghost Doctor was. "You know him?" Ghost Doctor raised his white brows as he asked in reply, "Why did you think of asking me?" Yi Qing Luo shook her head as she played it down. 3 days of holiday, I heard of God Thief's name when I was training outside, so I just casually asked." Casually? Just because of this question, she specially came to the pill refining room to look for him. This was called casually? Just at this moment, the duo's expressions suddenly changed. Yi Qing Luo's ears twitched as she heard someone approaching the pill refining room's footsteps. Her expression was grave as she exchanged glances with Ghost Doctor, and her body had already speedily moved towards the entrance of the pill refining room as she dashed out, pressing the mechanism to seal the entrance. By the time Yi Qing Luo stood by the table and picked up a stalk of medicinal herb, the pill refining room's door suddenly opened. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes in astonishment as she saw 3 elderly dressed in elder robes standing at the entrance. Yi Qing Luo recognized one of them. The leading elder was not anyone else but Elder Yunxiang. As for the 2 elders behind him, Yi Qing Luo had met them once before, so she didn't have a deep impression of them. Student Yi Qing Luo. Yunxiang's vision swept around the pill refining room as his gaze fixed onto Yi Qing Luo. "Why are you here?" "This is my master's pill refining room. Why can't I be here?" Yi Qing Luo put down the medicinal herb as her eyes narrowed. "Where's Ghost Doctor?" Yun Xiong's expression sunk slightly. He had not expected this wretched lass to really become Ghost Doctor's disciple. Ghost Doctor's character was actually able to get along with Yi Qing Luo peacefully. Just entered the secret alchemy room to refine a new medicinal pill. Yi Qing Luo replied without any change in expression, "Is there anything the three elders need from my master?" Refining pills? Yun Xiong frowned and looked around suspiciously. He has always been in the pill refining room. When I arrived, Master was already in the medicine refining chamber. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased as a sliver of impatience and vigilance surfaced on her face. "Elder Yun Xiong has now set his sights on my master?" Yun Xiong's expression became extremely ugly. Yi Qing Luo intentionally wanted him to become enemies with Ghost Doctor, making use of Ghost Doctor's identity and status to deal with him. Yun Xiong clenched his fists and scoffed. "Don't talk nonsense. I was only ordered to check if all the teachers and staff have returned to the academy." Following orders. Investigate. Yi Qing Luo's half-squinted eyes were flowing with light as it refracted a piercingly cold ray. Yun Xiong's orders. Other than Great Elder Yun Rue was the dean. It must be the headmaster's order to investigate the teachers and staff. Just a simple investigation only? Most probably, Ghost Doctor's injury was. "I asked you to differentiate the medicinal herbs, and you're making a ruckus. If you can't settle down, then scram out." A stern shout was heard from the secret alchemy room, and following that, the secret room's door suddenly opened. Ghost Doctor stood at the entrance with a sunken face as he berated impatiently. Chapter 652. Sir Ghost Doctor. When the three elders saw Ghost Doctor, their expressions immediately turned respectful. Ghost Doctor's face sunk as his expression turned extremely ugly. "Get out if you have anything to say. Don't disturb me while I'm refining pills." The three elders nodded their heads as they respectfully closed the door of the pill refining room. At the moment when the door closed, Yun Xiong's vision subtly glanced at Yi Qing Luo, revealing a few probing looks. By the time the pill refining room regained its silence, Yi Qing Luo turned her head to look at Ghost Doctor, who pretended that nothing had happened. Perhaps he had taken some pills, as his complexion was extremely normal, not as pale as before. There wasn't a single bit of blood stench on him. At this moment, Yi Qing Luo was already certain that Ghost Doctor's injury had something to do with Director. Moreover, Director was starting to suspect Ghost Doctor. Didn't Director respect Ghost Doctor a lot? Otherwise, he wouldn't specially set up a pill refining room for Ghost Doctor on the second story of the library pavilion. Between the two of them, what was their relationship? Suddenly, Yi Qing Luo recalled the conversation between Director and a certain guardian not long ago. Recalling the Director wanted to silence her, but ultimately the main reason was because of Ghost Doctor's face, so he stopped. Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly stopped. Isn't it said that it's best not to know anything? Ghost Doctor looked at Yi Qing Luo's increasingly grave expression as he sighed softly. Yi Qing Luo walked over and supported Ghost Doctor back to the pill refining room as she replied, "Whatever Senior Ghost Doctor does, he has his own reasons, so I won't make any guesses." "What did you call me?" Ghost Doctor's brows creased. Yi Qing Luo was stunned as she pursed her lips. "Senior Ghost Doctor." Ghost Doctor seemed displeased. "How did those old men call me earlier?" Yi Qing Luo's eyelids drooped as she naturally understood Ghost Doctor's meaning. Ghost Doctor had sincerely accepted her and wanted to take her in as his disciple. Yi Qing Luo admitted that she indeed wanted to learn more pill refining skills from Ghost Doctor, but she was unable to become Ghost Doctor's disciple, unable to betray the master in her heart. In Yi Qing Luo's heart, master could only be Old Man Song. When she came to this strange world, it was Old Man Song who helped her cleanse her marrows and bones. It was Old Man Song who taught her how to stand firm in this strange world. It was Old Man Song, who taught her wholeheartedly, that allowed her to live until now. Otherwise, she would not have rejected Guayu back then. Not willing? The ghost doctor's gaze darkened, her brows knitted together. The ghost doctor was astonished. Many students were racking their brains to become his disciples. Now that he took the initiative to accept Yi Qing Luo as his disciple, he was rejected instead? He could tell that Yi Qing Luo had innate talent in alchemy. He could tell that Yi Qing Luo was interested in alchemy. As long as he trained her for a period of time, she would definitely surpass him. It was very likely that he would become a medicine immortal that surpassed the medicine sovereign. Senior Ghost Doctor, I'm very happy that you're willing to take me in as your disciple, because Senior Ghost Doctor has recognized my ability. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes and explained, but, Senior Ghost Doctor, I'm sorry, I have no way. Lass, Old Man Tsong's voice suddenly resounded in her mind, hurriedly interrupting her words. This old man knows your intentions, but this kind of opportunity is hard to come by. Old Man Tsong loved this lass, Yi Qing Luo, very much. He could feel Yi Qing Luo's heart that respected him. If for him who didn't have a physical body and only had a strand of remnant soul, to sacrifice Yi Qing Luo's future, he couldn't do it, and he couldn't bear to. Yi Qing Luo was his hope, his salvation. Chapter 653. Old Man Song. Lass, I understand what you want to say. I'm already very satisfied that you have this intention. Old Man Song interrupted her words once again. Ever since you rejected Guayu the last time, I've been thinking for a long time. I can't be so selfish. He, who is just a remnant soul. Most of the time when Yi Qing Luo met with danger, he had no way to help her. Yi Qing Luo needed other help. Ghost Doctor was not only an elder-grade alchemist, his own ability was also very strong. Moreover, Ghost Doctor was worthy of trust. Lass, listen to me. Moreover, even if you become his disciple, I'm still your senior master. Hearing Old Man Song's words, Yi Qing Luo went into deep thoughts. Old Man Song's words. Every word and sentence was filled with concern for her. Every word and sentence was for her sake. Retracting her eyes and muttering to herself for a moment, Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes after some time, as she met Ghost Doctor's probing gaze. Senior Ghost Doctor, I admit, I want to learn alchemy skills from you. I want to become a medicine sovereign alchemist. Yi Qing Luo's voice was sincere and earnest. As her gaze towards Ghost Doctor had no intention of evading his gaze. I want to become Senior Ghost Doctor's disciple, but before this, I have to make it clear to Senior Ghost Doctor. I have a master before. Ghost Doctor's expression instantly darkened. You have a master? Who's your master? His voice paused as he seemed to have thought of something. Is it that fellow from the Imperial Palace? Yi Qing Luo shook her head. Isn't around anymore. Not around. Hearing this tone, looking at this expression. Meaning he was dead? Ghost Doctor's gloomy expression immediately resumed back to normal, as he stretched out his left hand to hold onto Yi Qing Luo's shoulder, as he patted lightly. Then there's no problem. From now onwards, you're my direct disciple. Senior Ghost Doctor, you've misunderstood my meaning. My master isn't. I understand. Ghost Doctor's hand, which patted her shoulder, increased in strength, as Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased into a bundle in pain. Young lady, you must look towards the future. You're still so young, and you're a rare talent. Become my disciple. Then you'll be able to unleash your potential. As she spoke, the Ghost Doctor's tone became urgent, and her face revealed a hint of impatience. Wasn't it just taking in a disciple? There was no need to go through so much trouble. Yi Qing Luo was in so much pain that she grimaced in pain, as her ears kept ringing with urging voices. Master, master. Yi Qing Luo twisted the fingers on her shoulder and gasped in pain, "Master, can you let me go?" Only then did the ghost doctor nod in satisfaction and let go of her shoulders. "I will impart to you everything related to refining elixirs without reservation. How much you can comprehend will depend on your comprehension. I'm injured. From today onwards, all the pills I need will be concocted by you." Following that, the next sentence made Yi Qing Luo cough violently. "Nanny, let her refine it?" Wasn't the ghost doctor thinking too highly of her? He had just taken him in as a disciple, and he hadn't even taught him anything yet, but he was already starting to refine pills. However, facing this master who would not go back on his words, Yi Qing Luo could only helplessly agree. But other than the matter of refining elixirs, Yi Qing Luo still had the last 5 days of freshman training, as well as Devil Class's unified training, and interclass competitions training 8 months later. Yi Qing Luo tried every means to persuade Ghost Doctor, and finally managed to convince him to spend 4 hours every afternoon to stay in the pill refining room, to listen to his guidance. Chapter 654. Otherwise the news of Ghost Doctor's injury would be exposed. After agreeing to Ghost Doctor's request, Yi Qing Luo then found a chance to take out 2 stalks of medicinal herbs from the profound phoenix ring. "Master, take a look at these 2 medicinal herbs." Profound ice immortal root, een infant grass. Ghost Doctor just took a glance and recognized what these 2 medicinal herbs were. "These are medicinal herbs for treating bone injuries. I want to refine the bone healing pill." Bone healing pill. Ghost Doctor looked at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment. "You actually know about the bone healing pill?" Bone healing pill. Not only was it a high-grade healing pill, moreover, it was an extremely rare pill. Even if ordinary alchemists had heard of the bone healing pill, they wouldn't know the method to refine this pill. There were only a few alchemists who were able to refine the bone healing pill. Yi Qing Luo took out these 2 main medicinal herbs, which meant that she knew the formula of the bone healing pill. From Ghost Doctor's tone, Yi Qing Luo knew that Ghost Doctor was clear about the method to refine the bone healing pill. Yi Qing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. She had seen this bone healing pill's formula in the 100-pill refining manual. She had memorized the medicinal herbs and the method to refine it, but if she really wanted to refine the bone healing pill, if she did it hastily, the rate of failure would be extremely high, and there was a possibility that because the alchemist was not mature enough, it would lead to the insufficient supply of profound jade heart and mental power during the refining process, resulting in a backlash. If it was light, the pill refining would fail and the medicinal herbs would be destroyed. If it was heavy, profound jade heart would shatter and the person would become a cripple. This was one of the reasons why Yi Qing Luo hadn't started to refine the bone healing pill after she got hold of the 2 main medicinal herbs. If Ghost Doctor knew the method to refine the bone healing pill, with his help, the success rate of refining the bone healing pill would definitely increase, and she wouldn't need to worry about the backlash happening again. "I have a very good sister in order to protect me. She had a crippled leg, and it wasn't treated in time." Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers tightened. "I've seen her leg. It's already been 7 to 8 years. 7 to 8 years? Such a long time. The bones have already formed. If I use acupuncture and bone healing pill, I have 70% confidence to turn her into a normal person." Yi Qing Luo replied firmly. Ghost Doctor's eyes flashed past a glint of admiration. Looks like the disciple he accepted was not only a genius in alchemy, but also a genius in medical skills. From her tone, it was obvious that she knew acupuncture, although they had only known each other for a short time. The Ghost Doctor still had some understanding of his little disciple's personality. If Yi Qing Luo wasn't sure of it, she wouldn't casually speak up. Since she said it out loud, she must have been mentally prepared. "You want me to help you refine the bone healing pill?" Ghost Doctor's words had just ended when he saw Yi Qing Luo shaking her head. Her eyes flashed with determination as her lips curled into a smile, all this while She has been the one to suffer for my sake. I also want to do something for her. At least, I want to personally heal her leg." The ghost doctor was stunned. Then he chuckled softly. Around the alchemist, the luminous pearls shone resplendently, shining on Yi Qing Luo's body, appearing so tranquil and beautiful. The ghost doctor's usually cold and indifferent face gradually softened, and a hint of warmth appeared between his brows. "Little girl, although this matter is a little troublesome, I am still your master. If you need any help from me, just tell me." "Thank you, master." Chapter 655. After coming out from the second story of the library pavilion, Yi Qing Luo received the gazes of the other students. Everyone were guessing what was the relationship between Yi Qing Luo and the library pavilion's administrator. She actually made the unreasonable administrator to allow her to enter the second story of the library pavilion. What was even more shocking was, this matter quickly spread throughout the entire academy, even to the ears of the elders' quarters and director. Everyone also saw with their own eyes that 3 elders went to the second story. However, Yi Qing Luo didn't receive any punishment. As though it was a matter of course for Yi Qing Luo to enter the second story of the library pavilion. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about those students' gazes, and didn't bother about those bold students who went up to ask for the reason, as she directly walked towards the direction of Devil Class. Devil Class's students were all seated in the classroom, excitedly discussing the feeling of these 3 days of experience learning. Long Yunjian and the others sat in the corner, smiling as they looked at the crowd. "Have you realized that ever since Qing Luo came to Devil Class, the entire atmosphere of Devil Class seems to have come alive?" Qiao Jin's back leaned against the wall, as his legs were placed on the wooden table. Yan Xiao raised her hand and patted his thigh. "Of course, Qing Luo taught everyone what a team is, what's called a companion. Everyone treated each other as their own kin who had gone through life and death together, so naturally the atmosphere is different from the past. In the past, under their control, the Devil Class looked peaceful on the surface. But in the dark, all the students were competing with each other. They were secretly forming their own cliques, ostracizing those with weaker abilities, whereas those with weaker abilities, in order not to let the team ostracize them, would ostracize those who were weaker than them. This kind of situation, as time went on, would make all the students feel alienated. Luckily, Yi Qing Luo came early, before the situation had completely deteriorated. She had saved these students. That's good. Long Yunjian, who had always been a man of few words, revealed a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. The few of them were astonished as they stared at Long Yunjian. Tong Ziqing sat in a row, not too far away from them, and could hear their conversation, as she could clearly see the smile on Long Yunjian's face. She pursed her lips and drooped her eyelids, enduring the sour feeling in her heart. A woman's intuition had always been accurate. Because of this, when Yi Qing Luo just joined the Devil Class, she tried her best to deal with Yi Qing Luo. She knew that Long Yunjian liked Yi Qing Luo. Who wouldn't like Yi Qing Luo? Even she was unable to avoid Yi Qing Luo's charm. He was supposed to hate Yi Qing Luo, but Yi Qing Luo had a kind of magical power which made one unable to hate her. Sister Ziqing, a gentlewoman's voice was heard. Enai Ruo sat cross-legged next to Tong Ziqing and placed her hand on Tong Ziqing's clenched fist. Tong Ziqing retracted her hand, and a trace of anger appeared on her cold and elegant face. "Let go." Enai Ruo Pan shook her head. "Sister Ziqing, don't show such an expression. Madame Qing Luo has the Overlord. One day, you will definitely be able to use your sincerity to move the class monitor." Tong Ziqing liking Long Yunjian was never a secret in the Devil Class. Enai Ruo Pan was most afraid that Tong Ziqing would dislike Yi Qing Luo because of Long Yunjian. It wasn't easy for their class to become harmonious like a big family. Enai Ruo Pan didn't want to hurt this big family because of anything. Moved Tong Ziqing burst out laughing. She had always thought that Long Yunjian didn't have a heart. Otherwise, it had been a whole 3 years. She had admired Long Yunjian for 3 years. But it wasn't able to warm up Long Yunjian's heart. Chapter 656. She wasn't as good as Yiqing Luo. This point, Tong Ziqing understood very well. She was unable to surpass Yiqing Luo, unable to become the kind of lady in Long Yunjian's heart. She was unable to obtain Long Yunjian's feelings. Sister Ziqing. Looking at Tong Ziqing's usually cold and arrogant eyes, revealing a pitiful look like an animal, and Rua Pan's heart seemed to be touched fiercely. She held Tong Ziqing's hand tightly, as she gently hugged Tong Ziqing's shoulder. Don't worry, I've already acknowledged Yiqing Luo's position in Devil Class, so I will not treat her as an outsider for any reason. Tong Ziqing's brows creased. She didn't like this kind of pity. No, and Rua Pan shook her head. I'm just feeling sorry for you, concerned about you. Tong Ziqing's petite body stiffened. She stared at Rua Pan for a long time. Looking at Rua Pan's sincere gaze, a certain part of her heart suddenly softened. Look, this was Yiqing Luo's magical power. This student who was labeled as Devil Class's most useless and most cowardly now dared to look straight into her eyes. What Yiqing Luo changed was not just a person, but a person's heart, a person's soul. Tong Ziqing gave a puff as she laughed out loud. What are you all chatting about, chatting so happily? Suddenly, a clear voice was heard from outside the classroom. Following that, a slender figure walked in. The bustling sounds in the classroom seemed to have pressed the stop button, as it stopped abruptly. Very quickly, the students' faces revealed joy. Madam Qing Luo. Yiqing Luo smiled as she walked to her seat, as she looked at Xiao Jin and the rest who were huddled together, seemingly chatting idly, as her slender brows rose slightly. So lazy on the first day after the holidays. You guys as the class committee are really incompetent. Being forcefully squeezed by someone for 3 days, finally escaping from this kind of squeezing. Of course I need to have a good rest. Xiao Jin glanced meaningfully at Yiqing Luo. You still have the energy to grumble. Looks like you haven't squeezed enough. Don't, my great aunt. I'm wrong. I'm wrong, all right. Xiao Jin immediately begged for mercy. Yan Xiao erased her elbow as she knocked Xiao Jin fiercely, as she stared at him angrily. Following that, he turned around and looked at Yiqing Luo worriedly. Why did you come over so late? I heard that you met Yiqing Qian at the academy's entrance? Everyone's expressions froze. After they entered the Devil Class, they had always stayed in the Devil Class. As for the matter of Yiqing Qian coming to the academy, they had never heard of it. Why is she still in the academy? Didn't he go to the fief with Leng Fenghua? Don't worry, just a hopping grasshopper. Nothing important, don't worry. Yiqing Luo waved her hand. She didn't put Yiqing Qian in her eyes at all. Leng Fengying was an intelligent person. Even if Yiqing Qian wanted to borrow Leng Fengying's strength to deal with her, Leng Fengying would more or less consider it. Furthermore, if Yiqing Qian went overboard, Leng Fengying would also weigh the importance between her and Yiqing Jian, losing Leng Fengying's protection, unless Yiqing Qian killed the West Continent's monarch and replaced him. Otherwise, she would probably have to return to her fief and become Consort Ping. Don't forget the purpose of our experience learning during this 3 days break, so you don't have any extra things to do. Yiqing Luo stood up. 8 months later in the interclass competition, you've promised me that you will get first place. The originally relaxed and cozy class instantly turned solemn. There's still 5 more days before my freshman training ends. After this, I will take part in your morning training. Yiqing Luo swiftly arranged the following matters. Chapter 657. Amen. After your freshman training has ended, the few of us will take part in all the training. All of them had to take part in the interclass competition, even if they were extremely confident of their own abilities. But after all, there was always someone better out there. They knew how to hide their abilities and had buried themselves for several years. There were also others who hid their abilities, waiting for the final explosion. Moreover, and the class of gods, that mysterious and unfathomable class. They could not afford to lose this interclass competition, so any factors which might affect them had to be considered comprehensively and come up with a solution first. Even the few members of the class committee had to take part in the training. It could be seen that this interclass competition was much more difficult than imagined. The students immediately straightened their backs as they stood ramrod straight as they looked at Yi Qing Luo and the others seriously. That's good too. With your participation, they will be more serious. For the next few days, the entire Devil class was extremely busy. They went through training day and night. Especially in order to motivate and stimulate the students, Yi Qing Luo integrated the Academy's regulations and came up with a way to record points. For example, completing double the allocated training tasks to accumulate 1 point. For example, obtaining victory in the group battles through drawing lots would accumulate 1 point. Moreover, during the group battles, Long Yunjian and the others would also take part in drawing lots. What made the students collapse the most was they couldn't admit defeat just because they couldn't win the other party or not fight seriously. This was disrespect towards the opponent. If they were discovered to have not given it their all, then 1 point would be deducted. These points, it was the qualification for these students to take part in the mercenary group missions during the 3 days holiday every month. Students who had less than 50 points were not allowed to take part in the mercenary group missions. These students had obviously felt a huge increase in their abilities in these 3 days of experience learning. All of them wanted to take part in the mercenary group missions and wanted to go on missions together with Yi Qing Luo and the others. Because of this, after the points regulations came out, the students' attitude towards training had increased. Most importantly, because of Long Yunjian and the others' participation, all the training exercises had increased by more than 2 times. Initially, the students were struggling, but during this period of time, their bodies had been tortured to the point where they had an extremely strong ability to accept it. On the 3rd day, the students were already able to keep up with Long Yunjian and the others' training. But Yi Qing Luo brought over the gravity belt and made them carry 50 kilograms of weight on their bodies to continue their training. The students were so miserable that they even wanted to die. All of them were so tired that they were about to vomit blood. However, Yi Qing Luo totally had no intention of feeling heartache for them. He even summoned his battle pet, Shiju. He let Shiju sit at the side and supervise. If any student stopped before the training ended, Shiju would definitely not be polite and put on a show. It was a game of cat and mouse. Absolutely marvelous. As for Yi Qing Luo these few days, it was... After the freshman training ended, Ling Chen rushed to the medicine refining room to receive the ghost doctor's guidance and refine pills. Coming out from the pill refining room, he rushed to the Devil class and trained together with the students of the Devil class. After the training ended, he followed Long Yunjian to the spiritual Qi treasure land and entered the Azure Dew bracelet to train with Old Man Song. Yi Qing Luo was already eager to try the 2nd level of the Purgatory Tower. However, Old Man Song still didn't agree to let her enter the 2nd floor to train. Although Yi Qing Luo had already advanced to Mystic Profound 8th grade. However, this kind of leapfrogging 4 ranks in a row was an instantaneous increase in power. Chapter 658. These few days, as it was nearing the countdown to the freshman training, the 2 instructors' training was getting more and more torturous and difficult. And after the devastating training by the 2 instructors, these freshmen's temper had long been smoothed out. Facing any tasks assigned by the instructors, they would complete it without any hesitation. The freshmen also noticed the changes in their bodies after their training. Because of this, no matter how tough and tiring the training was, they didn't throw a tantrum. Very soon, it was the last day of the freshman training. Yi-Ching Luo arrived at the freshman training ground early in the morning and ran 2 rounds around the training ground alone before the freshmen started to arrive. After Lu Xiaoyu arrived, she followed behind Yi-Ching Luo and asked, "Ching Luo, after the freshman training ends, the time we have to meet will be even lesser." They were freshmen, and the teachers would be stricter on them than the other students. There were endless things waiting for them every day, and there was no time to meet up for a chat, and so on. Moreover, ever since the holidays, Yi-Ching Luo was obviously busier than before. Learning is more important. When we have enough ability, the teachers will not be so strict. Yi-Ching Luo's pink lips curled up. You better improve your ability in the intermediate profound class, and when this month's holiday is over, I'll bring you out for experience learning. Lu Xiaoyu's eyes lit up. Yi-Ching Luo led the Imperial Palace's disciples to form a team and even went against the high profound class in the restaurant. Lu Xiaoyu, who was extremely concerned about Yi-Ching Luo, naturally heard about it. She heard that Yi-Ching Luo didn't forget to go out for experience learning with the team during the holidays, carrying out real combat training. Lu Xiaoyu's blood was boiling on hearing that Yi-Ching Luo wanted to bring her along. Lu Xiaoyu kept nodding her head. "This is what you said. When the holidays are over, I will keep pestering you." The 2 of them chatted as they ran, and the instructors also arrived. The freshmen stood in line and waited for the instructors to give instructions. 1 month of freshman training. Today is the last day. Instructor Ho was expressionless as he said in a loud voice, "From tomorrow onwards, you don't need to come to the freshman training ground for training." None of the freshmen cheered or jumped for joy. They still stood quietly at the same spot, not making a sound. From the end of today's training, all of you will be official students of the Heavenly Academy. What awaits you will be a month of learning and training that is worse than death. I hope that all the students will continue to train every day after the freshman training ends. The 2 instructors spoke one after another, repeating the words that they would say every time the freshmen finished their training. Then they entered the main topic. It's the last day of freshman training. I've discussed it with Instructor He and decided to cancel today's training. We'll use a different method to end the freshman training. The corner of Instructor Chu's eyes twitched as he scanned through the freshmen, but his gaze was indistinctly fixed on Yi-Ching Luo. The freshmen will take turns to challenge either me or Instructor He. As long as you succeed in your challenge, today's training will be over. If you fail, you can also leave the training ground. Instructor Chu's words made the freshmen widen their eyes in shock. Challenging 2 instructors? How could they possibly succeed in the challenge? The other party was an extremely powerful instructor. Instructor Chu and Instructor He had already raised their hands, signaling the freshmen to disperse and empty the training ground. The instructors were serious. Chapter 659. Instructor Chu and Instructor Ho were the strictest and strongest instructors among the freshman instructors. Even Wu Fuzi from the high profound class was no match for the 2 instructors. Not to mention these freshmen. Challenge successful? What a joke! Everyone's vision, subconsciously, looked towards Yi-Ching Luo. Among the entire freshmen, only Yi-Ching Luo had the ability to challenge the instructors? At this moment, these freshmen seemed to have forgotten about it. This Yi-Ching Luo, in their eyes, was a waste student from the waste class. After hearing the challenge, Yi-Ching Luo and Lu Xiaoyu pushed to one side, leaving an empty space in the middle of the training ground. But she did not expect everyone's vision to be on her. Yi-Ching Luo's lips twitched. Immediately her charming eyes curved. "I am a student of the devil class. I should be the last one." Oh, such a strong reason. The freshmen were speechless. If Yi-Ching Luo was not up, then who? The freshmen looked at each other in dismay. No one was willing to be the first. They were not fools. Before they entered the Heavenly Academy, they had already inquired about the rules of the Heavenly Academy, challenged the instructors, and if they failed, they could leave the training ground? How could there be such a simple thing in the Heavenly Academy? Thinking about it, they had just been admitted to the academy on the second day, and they had already started to accept the instructors' training. Although it was said to be training, it was actually an assessment, a class allocation assessment. Their results in those 3 days of training would be included in the overall results of the class allocation. Naturally, on the last day of the freshman training, it would not be a simple challenge to the instructors. There was a high possibility that this challenge to the instructors would be included in one of their results. If their performance was too poor, it would pull down the overall results. These freshmen had a lot of tricks up their sleeve. Now that the instructors were full of energy, the first one to go up was simply seeking death. Why not wait for the other students to take turns, and after the instructors' energy was depleted, they could then go up? The freshmen all had the same thought. After pushing for some time, none of the freshmen took a step forward. The two instructors' faces sunk. Instructor Ho berated impatiently. Where has this 1 month of training gone to? You don't have any guts and still want to become strong? Go home and ask your mother for a hug. Uffed. Yi Ching Luo laughed out in an unkind manner. She couldn't be blamed for losing her composure. Instructor Ho's face was expressionless as he asked for a hug with a straight face. It was almost comical. Those students' faces turned red from what she said, and when they heard Yi Ching Luo's laughter, they felt that Yi Ching Luo was ridiculing them. The young and hot-blooded freshmen were proud and arrogant. How could they endure being looked down upon by others? Immediately, a student stood up. I'll do it. In less than 30 minutes, there were already more than 20 students lying on the ground, crying out in pain. No one could last more than 5 moves against the instructor. When the instructor's fists and palm energy landed on the freshmen's bodies, they wouldn't hurt their internal organs, but they were in so much pain that they wished they were dead. There were already a few freshmen from the intermediate profound class, but none of them managed to gain any advantage from the instructors. There were also some new students from the low profound class who heard the cries of pain from the other new students. They were so scared that they shrank back and did not dare to step forward to challenge. Next, Instructor Ho stood in the middle of the training ground and glanced at the students around him gloomily. Although he was expressionless, the aura he emitted made people feel clearly he was in a very bad mood. Could he be any better? Chapter 660. So what if your profound level is high and your physical fitness is strong? In the face of an attack, he would not make the first judgment and act rashly. He was full of openings. After training for a month, there was no improvement at all. It was worrying whether these students would be able to graduate. The students around them didn't move. They tried their best to hide behind the other freshmen. Instructor Ho frowned. Seeing that there were still no students coming up, his vision fell onto Yi Ching Luo. Instructor Chu also looked at Yi Ching Luo. Among this batch of new students, the one they valued the most was Yi Ching Luo. He wondered how this female student's combat skills were like. The other freshmen heaved a sigh of relief as they looked towards Yi Ching Luo. His meaning was obvious. He hoped that Yi Ching Luo would take the field. As long as Yi Ching Luo took the field, she might be able to defeat the instructors and this freshman training session would come to an end. Although there was only a small chance of him winning. Lin Yin was not a match for Lin Yin. But compared to anyone else present, Yi Ching Luo's chances of winning was the biggest. Half of Yi Ching Luo's body was leaning on Lu Xiaoyu as she squinted her eyes, staring at Instructor Ho. Seeing their gazes converging on her, Yi Ching Luo's slender brows rose slightly, but there wasn't a single trace of fluster on her face from being called out. On the contrary, when she opened her charming eyes, there were faint ripples in the depths of her eyes. He seemed extremely satisfied. I'm a student of the devil class. Every word was spat out very clearly. She's smiling. The other thoughts in his heart and the hope on his face were gradually replaced by anger. Shangguan Liuli's expression was sinister as she clenched her teeth tightly. Yi Qing Luo, you're obviously afraid. You can't even beat the two instructors, so you're using the devil class as an excuse. Yi Qing Luo shrugged her shoulders. Did I say that I can beat the instructor? You. Shangguan Liuli clenched her fists. You coward. He didn't even dare to take the final challenge of the freshman training. Students from the trash class were trash. You really think so highly of yourself. The other freshmen nodded in agreement. Humph! How powerful did he think he was? I was just in the limelight during training, but you really want to take advantage of me? Aren't you very arrogant? Why did you back off when you challenged the instructor? If you really have the ability, then defeat the instructor. If you succeed, I'll kneel down and call you Grandaunt. At this moment, the freshmen were extremely nervous and fearful, especially when he thought about how he had subconsciously placed all his hopes on the trash of a trash class. He felt ashamed. He urgently needed an opening to vent the anger in his heart. Shangguan Liuli raised her head, and all of them started to berate Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. Her curved, charming eyes, long and narrow with a demonic charm, outlined a strong sense of sarcasm. If you have the ability, go ahead. If you don't have the ability, then don't shut your mouths. Yi Qing Luo rolled her eyes. Towards these freshmen's 3 views, she was slightly tipsy. Were these people sick in the head? She did not speak at all, nor did she show any expression. She was dragged into the flames of war. It was like getting shot while lying down. Yi Qing Luo, you're the one who has no ability. You coward. Who do you think you are? How dare you tell us to shut up? You don't even have the courage to challenge us. Yet you want us to shut up? The trash from the trash class is not only trash, but also lowly. Yi Qing Luo's mouth twitched a few times. Damn it. This student, have your 3 views been eaten by a dog? Who was the one with the lowly qualities? Instructor Ho couldn't bear it any longer and angrily rebuked. What's with all the noise? If you're unhappy, come straight to me. The freshmen immediately kept quiet. Chapter 661. They must be sick. Lu Xiaoyu suppressed the urge to retort and whispered into Yi Qing Luo's ear. If they have the ability, why don't they do it themselves? On one hand, they pin their hopes on you. On the other hand, they call you trash. They are really contradictory. Well, they definitely didn't take their medicine and were released. Yi Qing Luo nodded in agreement. Let me try. Suddenly, a cold and calm voice came from the freshman. Immediately, a slender, handsome young man walked out. The young man looked indifferent, and his attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. When he stood in front of Instructor Ho, he bowed his head slightly to show his respect. Qi Jing from High Profound Class 1. Male God Qi. Male God Qi. The freshmen were excited. In this batch of freshmen, there were only 2 students who entered the High Profound class. Qi Jing was one of them. They were also the 2 most powerful people in this batch of students. When the freshmen were cheering, they did not forget to glance at Yi Qing Luo proudly. Oh, they still had Qi Jing. They didn't care about her at all. Yi Qing Luo, who received this look, twitched her mouth again and was speechless. Challenger, Qi Jing. As soon as Instructor Ho's voice fell, the entire training ground fell into silence. All the freshmen held their breath and watched the battle nervously. If even Qi Jing couldn't withstand 5 moves, there was no hope for them at all. Qi Jing's expression became dignified and vigilantly laid out an offensive stance. Just as he was about to launch an attack, Instructor Ho raised his hand and made a pause gesture. Wait a minute. Immediately, Instructor Ho turned around and walked to Instructor Chu's side. For the next few rounds, Instructor Chu will accept your challenges. Qi Jing's face changed slightly as he frowned at Instructor Ho. After Instructor Ho glanced at him, he looked away casually. It seemed changing the instructor to accept the challenge was just a whim. Qi Jing clenched his fists, took a deep breath, and nodded in resignation. Yes. Instructor Chu, I'm sorry. With a greeting, Qi Jing quickly made his move. He didn't use his full strength. It was all to test Instructor Chu. His reflexes were also extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already exchanged more than 10 moves. The freshmen widened their eyes in shock. There was actually a freshman who could withstand so many moves from the instructor and still wasn't done. Moreover, it was obvious that Qi Jing did not use his full strength. Qi Jing had hopes of defeating the instructor. The freshmen' hearts were in their throats as they stared at Qi Jing nervously. Shangguan Liuli's eyes sparkled as she stared complacently at Yi Qing Luo. But she realized that Yi Qing Luo didn't even look at her. Yi Qing Luo stared intently at the two of them, hooked her arm around Lu Xiaoyu's shoulder, and smiled. Qi Jing is very smart. Instructor Ho is very black-bellied. Huh. Lu Xiaoyu was confused. The reason why Qi Jing didn't challenge the instructor until now is to observe Instructor his habits and strength. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win every battle. The fact that Qi Jing is on the stage means that he already has a way to defeat Instructor He, or he has concluded a way to restrain Instructor He. However, Instructor He is also an old fox. She could see Qi Jing's plan. Instructor Ho naturally saw it too. In the end, the instructor suggested that they take turns to challenge them, but it wasn't enough just to defeat them. But they wanted to sum up the strengths and weaknesses of the students in the sparring, so that the masters in their class could give strict guidance to one of them. Chapter 662. Qi Jing wanted to use the observation method to restrain Instructor Ho, but Instructor Ho didn't intend to let him try. Because of that, he deliberately let Instructor Chu, who hadn't been on the field, take over. Qi Jing's idea fell through, but Qi Jing was indeed a talent. Even if it was Instructor Chu, he would be able to readjust his steps in the shortest time possible. After testing Instructor Chu, he quickly calculated the most suitable way to deal with Instructor Chu. Yi Qing Luo's heart, which wanted to dig out someone's heart, started to stir. Cough, cough. It seemed that ever since the establishment of the World Mercenary Group, whenever she saw a talent, she would want to hook up with the World Group. Qi Jing is so powerful. Lu Xiaoyu nodded her head as she looked at the exchange of blows between Qi Jing and Instructor Chu with adoration. Their speed was extremely fast, and their moves were getting sharper and sharper. Unknowingly, another 20 over blows had passed. As time went by, the other students also heard that today was the last day of freshman training, and they all wanted to know what methods the instructors would come up with to end this season's freshman training. The entire training ground was gradually surrounded by layers and layers of people. Almost there. Yi Qing Luo opened her eyes and said indifferently, "What?" Lu Xiaoyu looked up at her in puzzlement. Yi Qing Luo smiled mysteriously. Just at this moment, the students outside the field exclaimed, "Male God Qi, be careful!" Qi Jing, who was facing off, had the upper hand. The next second, Instructor Chu's figure moved swiftly and with a palm wind. He went up from Qi Jing's back. Just as Qi Jing was about to counter this palm wind, Instructor Chu's feet flashed, and he flashed to the other side of Qi Jing, and his fist landed on Qi Jing's abdomen. Qi Jing immediately cried out in pain as he clutched his abdomen and half knelt on the ground. Lost. Qi Jing lost. The clamor, which was still cheering for Qi Jing, gradually died down. They actually lost? Obviously. Qi Jing could have won. The freshmen at this moment were completely disheartened. They thought that Instructor Chu's ability was weaker, and coincidentally, it was Qi Jing's challenge. Seeing that Qi Jing had the upper hand after 30 over blows, they thought that they could win easily. But Lost? Would they still have a chance to win? Jing! Dong Huanglang rushed over and helped Qi Yijing up. Are you okay? I'm fine. Qi Yijing covered his abdomen and stood up with the help of Dong Huanglang. He shook his head slowly and said, You are indeed the instructor of the freshmen. I am convinced. Instructor Chu gently patted the wrinkles on his clothes. His face was calm, as if the battle just now did not affect him at all. Hearing Qi Yijing's words, he looked up and said, Student Qi is a very talented student. If she is trained well, she will definitely become a great person. The students gasped and looked at Qi Yijing enviously. This was the second person to be praised by the cold-faced instructor. Although Qi Yijing had lost this battle, however, he was able to withstand more than 30 moves from Instructor Chu and was praised by Instructor Chu, so it was not considered a loss. Next, Instructor Chu raised his voice again. This time, it was Dong Huanglang's turn. He helped Qi Yijing to Yi Qing Luo's side, walked to the front of Instructor Chu, and bowed slightly. As soon as he attacked, Dong Huanglang's momentum was very fast, different from Qi Yijing's step-by-step probing and pressing. He was completely the representative of don't be afraid, fight directly. Such a strong attack had caught Instructor Chu off guard. This battle was also exciting and dangerous. Chapter 663. Qing Luo, how did you know that Qi Yijing would lose? Lu Xiaoyu finally understood what Yi Qing Luo meant when she said, almost done earlier. He was referring to the fact that this battle was almost over. Lu Xiaoyu was very curious about how Yi Qing Luo was able to analyze the psychological state of both parties so clearly as though she was a god. It was obvious that Qi Yijing had the upper hand, but Yi Qing Luo knew that he would lose. Qi Yijing, who was staring at the battle between Dong Huanglang and Instructor Chu, also turned to look at them. Yi Qing Luo held her chin and explained patiently. From the beginning, Instructor Chu was deliberately being modest. The reason why he let you challenge him is to understand your habits and strength. Once they understand clearly, they will end the battle quickly, just like Qi Yijing's match. Yi Qing Luo met Qi Yijing's gaze and said indifferently, Instructor Chu has been fighting with you to see your potential. After getting the result, Instructor Chu will not waste any more time. It was not that Instructor Chu's ability was not good. It was Instructor Chu who used his own way to test Qi Yijing's potential. Qi Yijing nodded, indicating that he agreed with Yi Qing Luo's words. And at this time, Dong Huanglang had also made more than 20 moves. At the last moment, he was knocked down to the ground and lost. The two freshmen who were allocated to the high profound class had lost. The last chance was gone. No, they still had a chance. Luli, should we say something soft and let Yi Qing Luo? A female student whispered. Yi Qing Luo's strength was very strong, at least from her recent performance. Her strength was absolutely enough to be allocated to the high profound class. What soft words? Why are you looking for her? How can a waste be better than Qi Yijing and Dong Huanglang from the high profound class? Shangguan Li shook off the female student's hand fiercely and berated her. But no buts. Didn't you see that she has been evading, hiding, and not daring to come over? She is simply afraid, waiting for us to challenge the instructor and reap the benefits. Shangguan Li did not hesitate to interrupt the female student's words. No matter how powerful Yi Qing Luo was, she was not as powerful as the instructor. What did she want from Yi Qing Luo? She doesn't dare, but I dare. I'll challenge you. Shangguan Liuli snorted coldly and walked to the center of the training ground. Looking at the increasing number of students around her, Shangguan Liuli clenched her fists. If she could withstand at least 10 moves, it wouldn't be too embarrassing. Fortunately, Instructor Chu was the one who accepted the challenge. Seeing that Dong Huanglang and Qi Yijing could exchange 20 to 30 moves with Instructor Chu, Instructor Chu's strength was definitely not as good as the other instructors. Thinking of this, Shangguan Liuli felt more confident. Attack! Attack! However, Shangguan Liuli had just condensed her chi and was about to make a move, but she found that Instructor Chu's figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. She quickly released her perception to search for Instructor Chu. Suddenly, he felt pain in his back. It was over before it even started. In less than a single move. The crowd was in an uproar. This was probably the worst challenge of the day. Those who had challenged previously and were assigned to the low, profound class. The weakest among them had at least passed 2 moves. The other freshmen looked at Shangguan Liuli as if they were looking at an idiot. It was so silly that it made people laugh. The other freshmen were not nervous or afraid at this time. Anyway, with the 5th miss of the Shangguan family at the bottom, what was there for them to be afraid of? Chapter 664. 5th Miss Shangguan. One of the 4 great families, the 5th miss of the Shangguan family. It was not because they were weak, but because the instructor was too strong. The rest of the freshmen thanked Shangguan Liuli from the bottom of their hearts for giving them the courage to challenge the instructor fearlessly. Immediately, one by one, the freshmen began to challenge the instructor. After exchanging a few blows with the instructor, the freshmen retreated in defeat. The freshmen who were slightly more capable and slightly more talented, at most 6 or 7 moves. Qi Yijing narrowed his eyes and squinted in the direction of Shangguan Liuli. Instructor Chu is avenging you. The meaning of teaching Shangguan Liuli a lesson was too obvious. These freshmen, for the instructor, did not need a single move to knock them down in minutes. But the instructor wanted to understand the combat experience of these freshmen, so he must exchange a few moves to test the opponent's reaction ability and attack posture. But Instructor Chu directly knocked Shangguan Liuli down. He did not give Shangguan Liuli a chance to fight back at all. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows slightly and smiled charmingly. She had already given Instructor Chu 32 likes in her heart. Well done. Under her gaze, you can still smile. Your heart is really big. Qi Yijing shook his head helplessly. Dong Huang Lang nodded at the side. Yiqing Luo looked over curiously. She saw Shangguan Liuli, who was pale and trembling all over, not willing to leave even under the mocking gazes of the crowd, was now glaring at her with hatred in her eyes. Staring at her? Was there something wrong with her? She was not the one who instigated Instructor Chu. Damn, she was being implicated again. The 2 instructors took turns, and after a while, except for Yiqing Luo, all the freshmen had finished their challenges. Without a doubt, all of them failed. Immediately, all the students' eyes were on Yiqing Luo. Waste of waste class. Now, you are the only one left. Still want to be a coward? Shangguan Liuli shouted angrily. She stayed here under the ridiculing eyes of the crowd, just to see Yiqing Luo become a laughing stock. Yiqing Luo seems to be a yellow profound 9th grade cultivator. So low profound grade. I thought she was at least in the mystic profound realm. She seems to be very powerful. Even the vice president and Lu Shuelon suffered a loss in her hands. What's so great about it? If she was really powerful, she wouldn't have been assigned to the trash class. Moreover, I heard that she was attacked by an assassin in the academy some time ago. She fainted on the spot. Fainted from shock. TSK, no wonder he was assigned to the trash class. The surrounding students kept on pointing and gossiping about Yiqing Luo, listening to the comments of the crowd under her intentional or unintentional guidance. They all started to mock them. Shangguan Liuli raised her head proudly, a cold smile appearing on her face. The last one, Yiqing Luo. Instructor Chu stood in the middle of the training ground, staring straight at Yiqing Luo. Actually, in this round of assessment, they were most interested in Yiqing Luo. This freshman was neither arrogant nor rash, neither servile nor overbearing. No matter what it was, as long as it was right, she would complete the task without hesitation. Not only did he complete the mission, but he also did it very well. Even they, as instructors, might not be able to complete the training, but she could still grit her teeth and complete it. No matter how bitter or tired he would never show it on his face. Moreover, there was something contagious about her. He could infect the people around him and cause them to change unknowingly. If they were to fight, what kind of surprise would this new student bring them? Chapter 665. Under everyone's attention, Yi Qing Luo calmly passed through the crowd and walked to the center of the training ground. Her steps were light and her breathing was steady. There was no trace of apprehension or fear at all. That kind of indifference, that kind of calmness. Shangguan Liuli clenched her fists tightly. Her round nails had already scratched her arm, but she didn't care, as if she was possessed, staring at Yi Qing Luo with hatred. She hated everyone in the Yi family. Yi Qing Qian, a broken flower with a bad reputation, had snatched away her beloved man. Yi Qing Luo, just a waste who was despised by others, dared to make her lose face again and again, causing her status in the Shangguan family to plummet. At this time, everyone's attention was on the center of the training ground. Even Yi Qing Luo didn't notice that behind the crowd, there was a wisp of black gas that was hard to be identified by the naked eye, like threads intertwining with each other, forming a treacherous and incomprehensible totem. In a split second, it blended into the air and disappeared. Student Yi Qing Luo, are you ready? Instructor Chu's eyes lit up with fighting spirit. His muscles tightened, ready to go. Yi Qing Luo fearlessly looked into Instructor Chu's eyes and calmly hooked her lips. In order to avoid some people saying that my challenge is unfair. After all, Instructor Chu, an instructor, who must be tired from fighting with hundreds of freshmen. She was implying something. All the students looked straight at Shangguan Liuli. They knew that the some people in Yi Qing Luo's words referred to Shangguan Liuli. Shangguan Liuli bit her lower lip, clutched her arm tightly, and endured the anger and resentment in her heart. Immediately, they heard Yi Qing Luo's sweet and calm voice. How about this, Instructor Ho and Instructor Chu? Both of you come together. Silence, silence, and more silence. What followed was a gasp of cold air and an incredulous gasp. Was there something wrong with this freshman? Wasn't she too arrogant? You're too arrogant for your own good. This kind of arrogance could no longer be called self-confidence, but called stupidity. One instructor had already made hundreds of freshmen helpless. The only one who could withstand at most 30 moves from the instructor was Qi Yijing from the high profound class 1. No matter how strong Yi Qing Luo was, she was merely a yellow profound 9th grade cultivator. It was impossible for him to be stronger than Qi Yijing and better than the instructor, right? Yi Qing Luo, stop pretending to be a genius. You are a piece of trash. 2 instructors at the same time? Who do you think you are? Do you have this qualification? Shangguan Liuli instantly found an outlet to vent as she pointed at Yi Qing Luo and started scolding her. Her eyes were filled with hatred, and her facial features gradually became distorted. I know, she laughed and looked at the 2 instructors. Instructor Chu, Instructor He, don't be fooled by her. She did it on purpose. He was right. Yi Qing Luo absolutely did it on purpose. Yi Qing Luo didn't want to embarrass herself or become a laughing stock, so she deliberately provoked the 2 instructors. As long as the 2 instructors struck at the same time, even if Yi Qing Luo lost, it would be a matter of course. Even if he lost, it was not shameful. Trash will always be trash, only knowing how to play tricks. Instructor Chu frowned and looked at Shangguan Liuli coldly. Student Shangguan, if you don't want to watch the challenge, leave the training ground now. The other students scratched their ears that were buzzing from the roar and nodded in agreement. They were here to watch the freshmen's assessment on the last day, to watch the challenge between the freshmen and the instructors. They were not here to listen to Shangguan Liuli's scolding. Chapter 666. Shangguan Liuli was frightened by the instructor's gaze and bit her lower lip, not daring to speak again. Hearing that the training ground had finally quietened down, Instructor Chu turned his head and looked at Yi-Ching Luo. Student Yi-Ching Luo, according to the rules of the student challenging the instructor. Due to the disparity in strength between the two parties, no matter what request the student makes other than asking the instructor to go easy, the instructor will comply unconditionally. Everyone was stunned. Those freshmen who had challenged and were beaten to the ground immediately climbed up from the ground. They could raise conditions. In other words, if they wanted to use weapons, it was also possible. However, during the challenge, none of them made any requests. If they had weapons against the empty-handed instructor, they would definitely be able to exchange a few more moves with the instructor and strive for a good result. The freshmen's hearts were filled with annoyance. Instructor Chu fixed his gaze on Yi-Ching Luo's eyes, as if trying to discern from her eyes whether what she said was true or just like what Shangguan Lili said. It was just a pretense of challenging the two instructors to avoid a shameful ending. Yi-Ching Luo's expression was calm. Her eyes were also calm. Instructor Chu looked at her for a long time and didn't see any hint of a joke. He turned his head and glanced at Instructor Ho from the corner of his eyes. Instructor Ho crossed his arms in front of his chest. His always indifferent eyes flashed with an interesting smile. She nodded her head in a very small manner. Student Yi-Ching Luo, that means we have to accept the conditions you proposed. Instructor Chu confirmed again. Yi-Ching Luo's lips curved. Her bright eyes shone with a flowing light. Her voice was sonorous and forceful, and the seriousness in her tone could be heard. I just want to test how much potential I have. Instructor Chu nodded. Well, since it is a request from student Yi-Ching Luo, Instructor Ho and I will meet your request. But before that, you must first let me see if you have enough strength for Instructor Ho to take action. As soon as he finished his words, Instructor Chu had already made his move, waving his fist and pouncing towards Yi-Ching Luo. This punch held back some strength. It was purely a test. Yi-Ching Luo narrowed her eyes, flipped her palms, and wrapped her hands around the oncoming fist. He secretly used a skillful force to push the fist back. At the same time Yi-Ching Luo's feet moved, her figure was like a ghost, quickly entangled behind Instructor Chu. With lightning speed, he grabbed Instructor Chu's neck. Instructor Chu's reaction was also extremely fast. Just as Yi-Ching Luo's wrist hooked around his neck, his large palm grabbed her slender arm. A woman's strength was naturally inferior to a man's. After Instructor Chu grabbed her arm tightly, he quickly bent down and pulled hard, directly flipping Yi-Ching Luo's delicate body from his back onto the ground. The surrounding students were shocked and looked at this scene in disbelief. In the blink of an eye, they were entangled together and had already exchanged several blows. Finally, when they saw Instructor Chu lifting up Yi-Ching Luo's delicate body, without the slightest bit of tenderness towards the fairer sex, their heartbeats accelerated and their hearts tightened nervously. Even the other students from the intermediate and high profound classes had never seen such an intense battle. In the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint, the two of them went back and forth. No one released their chi. What he relied on was his own skills. The moment Yi-Ching Luo was lifted up, the expression on her face turned extremely grave. She had indeed seen everything too simply. She didn't expect Instructor Chu to look so burly and tall, but his body was so nimble. Chapter 667. Yi-Ching Luo restrained the shock in her eyes and immediately reacted. Her body spun from Instructor Chu's back, and when she was in midair, her other hand slapped hard on Instructor Chu's back. Immediately after that, her foot stepped on Instructor Chu's back. The strength of this slap and kick was absolutely not small. Instructor Chu's face changed, and he frowned in pain. This stunned him and gave Yi-Ching Luo a chance. Her petite body was like a butterfly as she leaped up gracefully. Her palms turned into eagle claws and went straight for Instructor Chu's back. After being kicked and slapped, Instructor Chu's reaction was still extremely fast. He did a back somersault and raised his fist to meet Yi Qing Luo's claw-like hands. Bam! When the fist and the eagle claws met, there was a loud explosion. It seemed that the entire training ground was shaking. Everyone knew that this was their illusion. These two people did not display their profound qi. It was impossible to cause such a big sensation. It was just that this kind of battle had deeply shaken their hearts. Actually evenly matched? No one gained any advantage, and no one was in a disadvantageous position. Instructor Chu was obviously more serious than when he accepted the challenge from the other hundreds of freshmen. Had Instructor Chu not used his full strength? Right, he must not have used his full strength. Otherwise, just based on Yi Qing Luo alone, how could she exchange so many blows with Instructor Chu? And each blow was extremely fierce. It was completely like a real battle, the kind of battle that would not end until one party died. They subconsciously covered their hearts, and a sense of nervousness filled their hearts. Instructor Chu's heart was also full of surprise at this time. From Yi Qing Luo's counterattack skills and the fastest speed, she made the most intuitive counterattack. It could be seen that she had rich combat experience, and her reaction speed was also fast. She could completely take down the opponent in the shortest time possible. What made him curious was that this girl's information clearly showed that she had been a waste for 15 years and had an enviable, profound jade heart. However, she had a waste physique that could not cultivate profound qi. In these 15 years, she had lived an extremely miserable life. How could she have such rich combat experience? How did he become so powerful in such a short period of time? Even with the guidance of the Overlord, it was impossible to transform a piece of trash into such a powerful being in just 1 month. There was only one possibility. Right from the start, Yi Qing Luo had intentionally pretended that she was a waste. Actually, she was a genius from the very beginning. Otherwise, why would Three Springs sect let Yi Qing Luo become the young matriarch of Three Springs sect the minute she was born? Even if she had been ridiculed and insulted for the past 15 years, the position of young sect master was still hers. With this in mind, Instructor Chu's confusion was instantly answered. This Yi Qing Luo, he was indeed a talent. Instructor Chu, you can't be distracted when you're fighting. By the side of his ear, Yi Qing Luo's sweet voice suddenly rang with a hint of a smile. Immediately, Instructor Chu felt a sharp pain in his chest. His tall and burly body was forced to take a few steps back by the force. Finally, it hit the wall with a heavy thud. Just listening to that voice made his heart ache. The students were shocked. Yi Qing Luo actually injured Instructor Chu? Did this mean that she had defeated Instructor Chu? That's impossible. Looking at the entire school, how many people could injure Instructor Chu in a one-on-one battle? Chapter 668. Little girl, your skills are not bad. Instructor Chu rubbed his chest that was hurting from the collision. His face revealed a kind of excited expression. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile, causing his usually ice-cold face to reveal the demonic charm of a mature man. All the female students present felt their heartbeats quicken. Yi Qing Luo withdrew her hand. Her face did not reveal any expression, but just smiled lightly. Instructor Chu was distracted. So I succeeded. Good. Again. Instructor Chu's voice just fell, and he rushed towards Yi Qing Luo. This time, Instructor Chu's attack was obviously much fiercer and more ruthless. His eyes were no longer probing and exploring, but a kind of excitement that had not floated for a long time, and the kind of excitement of wanting to fight to the death. Yi Qing Luo naturally felt it. In the battle between the two, Instructor Chu's attacks became faster and more ruthless. Yi Qing Luo felt that it was difficult at the beginning of Instructor Chu's transformation. She gritted her teeth and quickly made adjustments, and with the fastest speed, she adjusted her state and countered Instructor Chu's attack one by one. I must be dreaming. I can't believe what I see. How could Yi Qing Luo and Instructor Chu. Exchange so many moves? And look at Instructor Chu's expression, his eyes. Instructor Chu is obviously serious, but he is serious. Yi Qing Luo can still fight to a draw with Instructor Chu. The surrounding students were amazed. At this time, how could these students not see it? The instructor had only used 1/10 of his strength when he fought against hundreds of freshmen. Now the instructor's eyes were sharp, his expression was dignified, and his face was solemn. The stronger students had already seen that although the instructor's battle with Yi Qing Luo was not as long as his battle with Qi Yijing, but in a flash, the two had exchanged several moves. At this time, back and forth, they had exchanged hundreds of moves. Instructor Ho narrowed his eyes, carefully sizing up Yi Qing Luo's every move. His eyes were full of satisfaction. This freshman was really powerful. No wonder she dared to ask him to fight with Instructor Chu together. She was indeed a freshman with strength and ample combat experience. He and old Chu had been partners for many years. He knew better than anyone about the changes in old Chu. This new student aroused old Chu's fighting spirit. Old Chu's ruthlessness surprised him, but he did not go forward to stop it. Actually, in his heart, he also wanted to properly explore just how great this new student's potential was. What made Instructor Ho shocked and gratified was old Chu became increasingly ferocious. After being at a disadvantage for 10 moves, the freshman quickly adjusted his fighting style and counterattacked. It was like a spring. When encountering the weak, one would be weak. When encountering the strong, one would be strong. The more pressure old Chu gave her, the faster Yi Qing Luo's ability and hands improved. Simply, he was a freak. Instructor Ho's eyes flashed, just as Instructor Chu and Yi Qing Luo separated from each other again. His footsteps moved slightly, and he was already behind Yi Qing Luo, launching an attack. Instructor! The students sucked in a breath of cold air. They did not expect Instructor He to join the battle at a time like this. Could it be that he was really planning to fight 1 against 2? Although this was Yi Qing Luo's own request. But seeing that Yi Qing Luo had a chance to win, Instructor He joined the battle. It was really unfair to Yi Qing Luo. Instructor Ho's sudden participation, and Yi Qing Luo was still fighting against Instructor Chu. How could she react? Chapter 669. Yi Qing Luo had just regained her footing when she felt a chill on her back. Her ears were filled with the students' panicked cries. Instructor Ho? Yi Qing Luo knew that the person behind her was Instructor Ho. She didn't look back, and it was too late. Just as Instructor Ho was about to attack, Yi Qing Luo's body used an extremely strange posture and deftly avoided Instructor Ho's sneak attack. With a leap, she retreated 10 steps away from the 2 instructors. Yi Qing Luo panted heavily and wiped the sweat on her forehead. Instructor Ho, it's a little hard for you to do this. Instructor Ho walked slowly to Instructor Chu, and both of them looked at Yi Qing Luo. Student Yi Qing Luo, this is your request. She was indeed the one who suggested it, but she didn't say that she would accept a sneak attack. The cold sweat on Yi Qing Luo's back had seeped into her uniform. She opened her mouth and exhaled heavily. Fortunately, her perceptive ability was higher than that of an ordinary person. The moment she sensed the danger, her body instinctively moved and quickly avoided Instructor Ho's sneak attack. Otherwise, if Instructor Ho's attack really fell on her, this challenge could be declared over. Student Yi Qing Luo, let's see how long you can last this time. Instructor Ho's eyes flashed a meaningful smile. He and Instructor Chu looked at each other. One on the left and one on the right, they bounced up and directly rushed towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Yi Qing Luo's expression was calm, without the slightest fear. She mustered up all her energy and began to deal with the 2 instructors. The 2 instructors were old partners and had a tacit understanding with each other. And as instructors, their own abilities were extremely powerful. Yi Qing Luo's chances of winning against the 2 of them at the same time was not high. Of course, if the instructors used their profound qi, Yi Qing Luo wouldn't have any chance at all. The instructors probably knew this too, so both of them used their own abilities and skills to attack Yi Qing Luo. In the blink of an eye, Yi Qing Luo had exchanged a few blows with the two instructors. Yi Qing Luo gradually became strained under the two's attacks. The two instructors didn't show any mercy. They used their most agile skills and strongest physique. Especially the two of them, one attacking and one defending, had a tacit understanding with each other. Yi Qing Luo couldn't find any chance to attack. Back and forth, Yi Qing Luo could only barely defend herself from being defeated by the two instructors without any chance to counterattack. But Yi Qing Luo didn't give up. This was also the reason why she asked the two instructors to go together. It wasn't because she thought that she was strong and impressive that she was intentionally provoking the instructor. Instead, everyone's potential was unleashed under pressure and coercion. Now that she had jumped 4 levels in a row and became a profound practitioner at the 8th level of the mystic profound realm, even if she did not use profound energy, her overall strength would still increase. She challenged the two instructors because she wanted to see how much she had improved after her promotion. Just like now, under the immense pressure of the two instructors, she was able to quickly dodge the instructor's attack. Her brain was also working quickly, analyzing the instructor's attack and then counterattacking. This was very effective in increasing his combat experience. After exchanging more than 10 strokes, Yi Qing Luo had already been pushed to the edge of the training ground. The students spontaneously opened up a path and watched this thrilling duel. All the students, no matter how much they hated Yi Qing Luo previously, at this moment, they all started to worship her. The idea of the strong being respected was deeply rooted in their minds. Chapter 670. It was one thing to hate Yi Qing Luo's character, but it was another thing to worship Yi Qing Luo's strength. Yi Qing Luo's back was pressed against the cold wall. She panted heavily, and sweat trickled down her forehead. Her hair, which was wet with sweat, clung to her face. By this time, she had exhausted all her energy. A woman's physical strength was not as good as a man's. Even the two instructors were panting and sweating profusely, not to mention Yi Qing Luo. The two instructors were closing in on her. Yi Qing Luo's slender body against the wall slowly tensed up. Her slender fingers curled up one by one and clenched into fists. She stared at the two instructors vigilantly, and when they were 2 steps away from her, she took a deep breath and curled her fingers into a claw shape and pinched Instructor Ho's shoulder. Enough. The two instructors stopped. Yi Qing Luo's hand paused in midair for a while and slowly retracted. Her body, which was leaning against the wall, couldn't hold on any longer and fell softly to the ground. She looked up with sweat dripping down her face. Student Yi Qing Luo's performance is extremely outstanding, it seems. Student Yi Qing Luo is very good at practical combat. Instructor Chu was panting as he spoke. It could be seen that Instructor Chu was also exhausted by Yi Qing Luo. The students covered their mouths and looked at them in astonishment. What kind of ending was this? Who won? Could it be a draw? When this thought flashed through their minds, the students shook their heads and felt that it was impossible. How could Yi Qing Luo tie with the two instructors at the same time? You must be joking. What's more, Yi Qing Luo was forced to lean against the wall and had no room to fight back. As long as the instructors moved their fingers slightly, Yi Qing Luo would definitely lose. Why did the instructors stop? The students were puzzled. Student Yi Qing Luo, in view of your excellent performance this time, Instructor Chu and I will apply to the director to let you enter the class of gods. Instructor Ho raised his hand and wiped the sweat off his face. Class of gods? His words stirred up waves. The students suddenly exploded. It was fine if it was the high profound class. Instructor Ho actually said, to let Yi Qing Luo enter the class of gods? This news made those students who originally worshipped Yi Qing Luo instantly turn from fans to haters. How could they feel the balance in their hearts? How could they be willing? No matter how valiant Yi Qing Luo's skills were, it couldn't change the fact that she was merely a yellow, profound, ninth grade cultivator. The Academy's wooden identity token was absolutely unable to conceal any personal information. Although there were less than 20 students in the class of gods, every single one of them was a super genius among geniuses. Even the lowest profound rank was at the Earth Profound 4th grade. Not only were there profound heart jades of the highest quality, even cultivating profound energy was a piece of cake for them. The class of gods was a legend in the Academy. It was a legend in the Academy. If it was the high profound class, then forget it. What right did Yi Qing Luo have to enter the class of gods? Yi Qing Luo was also shocked by Instructor Ho's words. Apply to enter the class of gods? Did the instructors discover her actual profound rank? That's not right. Even if they found out her actual profound rank, it was only mystic profound 8th grade. Not enough to enter the class of gods. Cough. Instructor Ho, thank you for your kind intentions, but this is not necessary. Yi Qing Luo had no intention to leave her brothers and sisters in the devil class. Compared to the class of gods, she felt that the students in the devil class were more talented. You're not willing to enter the class of gods. Instructor Chu frowned slightly. Although you once said that as long as you are willing to work hard, nothing can stop your growth. But the reason why the class of gods became a legend is because of its own reason. Chapter 671. The two instructors continued to lobby. Obviously, they had made up their minds to get Yi Qing Luo into the god class. The surrounding students were filled with envy. Yi Qing Luo was indeed the freshman that the instructor liked. Two instructors, especially the Academy's most impartial, cold, and emotionless instructors, jointly wanted to send Yi Qing Luo into the class of gods. What kind of honor was this? Even if Yi Qing Luo wasn't able to enter the class of gods, her ability was recognized by these two stern-faced instructors. In the eyes of many students, he was an expert. Just as the students were envious, the two instructors were eagerly lobbying, and Yi Qing Luo shook her head in rejection. This extremely peaceful atmosphere. Suddenly, a sharp shout resounded through the entire training ground. It's not fair. This is unfair. The steely green-faced Shangguan Liuli's face twisted malevolently as he stared at Yi Qing Luo with a venomous gaze. She wanted to see Yi Qing Luo become a joke. She wanted to see the scene of Yi Qing Luo failing in her pretentious act and instead being taught a terrible lesson by the instructors. In the end, how did Yi Qingcheng become the strongest in the students' hearts? He's just a piece of trash. Why should he be worshipped by these students? Were they all blind? At this very moment, Shangguan Liuli's heart was completely blinded by her hatred and resentment towards Yi Qing Luo. No matter what Yi Qing Luo did in her eyes, there was an ulterior motive. Shangguan Liuli raised her hand and pointed directly at the two instructors. It's you guys. You guys intentionally went easy on her, intentionally helping Yi Qing Luo, just to see me make a fool out of myself. You and that slut Yi Qing Luo are in cahoots. Her hysteria caused the surrounding students to frown, their faces filled with disgust. This Shangguan Liuli was really pestering Yi Qing Luo till death. She couldn't bear to see others doing better than her. Many people began to doubt the way the Shangguan clan taught their children. How did they raise such a brainless fifth miss, be it the freshmen or the seniors, who in the academy didn't know that these two instructors were famous for being impartial? Who didn't know that they didn't give face to anyone? Purposely going easy? That battle just now wasn't a private challenge. It was an open and above-board battle with so many pairs of eyes. Couldn't they tell if the instructor had done his best? Does that look like he's going easy on me? Intentionally colluding with Yi Qing Luo to see her make a fool of herself? Hee. Who did she think she was? If the instructor wanted to see her, Shangguan Liuli, make a fool of herself, he could do it with just one sentence. Why did he have to go through so much trouble to gather the other students to see her make a fool of herself? He thought too highly of himself. Shangguan Liuli, get out of here. Instructor Ho couldn't take it anymore and shouted with a gloomy face. Shangguan Liuli pursed her pale lips and clenched her fists. Her eyes were already stained with tears. Instructor He, this is favoritism. If I report this to the dean, you and Instructor Chu will not be able to live in peace. Are you threatening us? Instructor Chu narrowed his eyes and slowly walked towards Shangguan Liuli. Shangguan Liuli's body trembled, and she took a few steps back in fear. But when he thought about how he was an official student of the academy from today onwards, he no longer had to deal with the instructor of the freshman training. What was there to be afraid of? Thinking of this, Shangguan Liuli took a deep breath. I'm not threatening you. I'm just trying to reason with you. Reason? Yi Qing Luo chuckled and caught a glimpse of a figure in the crowd from the corner of her eyes. Her long and narrow eyes hooked into a cold arc of ridicule. She took light steps, past the instructor, and walked to the front of Shangguan Liuli. Every step Yi Qing Luo took, Shangguan Liuli took a step back. Chapter 672. This was It was an oppressive feeling that no one could hide from. Shangguan Liuli didn't want to admit that she was afraid of Yi Qing Luo. But when she saw Yi Qing Luo approaching her without saying a word, her heart became more flustered and confused. The truth that student Shangguan mentioned, is it the truth taught by the Shangguan family, or is it the truth that student Shangguan has an outstanding innate talent and had an epiphany? Yi Qing Luo smiled elegantly. Shangguan Liuli was slightly stunned, not understanding the meaning of Yi Qing Luo's words. In the blink of an eye, Yi Qing Luo was already standing in front of her, 5 steps away. Everything needs evidence. Student Shangguan thinks that Instructor Ho and Instructor Chu went easy on me and wanted to see you make a fool of yourself. Please show me the evidence first. Yi Qing Luo's voice became colder. If you can't show me the evidence. Her voice paused, her slender brows raised slightly, and looked at Shangguan Liuli with a faint smile. Student Shangguan, I can also complain to the faculty council, to the dean. Shangguan Liuli snorted coldly. Complain? What can you complain about? Anyone with discerning eyes could tell that Yi Qing Luo and the instructors were in cahoots. There was no need for any evidence at all. Yi Qing Luo smiled and immediately raised her finger. First, as a student, you don't know how to respect your teacher. Second, you made irresponsible remarks, slandered the instructors, slandered the students. Just based on these points, according to the school rules, it is not as simple as recording a major demerit. You. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened. You're talking nonsense. Whether I am talking nonsense or not, the instructors will testify. The students present will also testify. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers raised slightly, touched her pink lips, and smiled enchantingly. Yugu. Shangguan Liuli quickly turned her head and looked at the group of students. The students looked at her with eyes full of mockery, disdain, and annoyance. She then realized that from the beginning to the end, she was the only one who felt that there was a problem between the instructors and Yi Qing Luo. These students had treated her as a fool. Student Shangguan, let me reiterate for the last time. This is not the Shangguan residence, nor is it a place for a rich missy like you to throw a tantrum. If you can't get used to the life here, then leave the Heavenly Academy as soon as possible. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as she looked at Shangguan Liuli expressionlessly. Opportunities are always given to those who are willing to improve and work hard. If you don't need this opportunity, then give it to others who need it. With that, the corners of her mouth curled into a mocking smile, and she turned to leave. That mocking sneer pierced Shangguan Liuli's eyes. She was the 5th daughter of the Shangguan family. She was the favored 5th miss of the Shangguan family. He had never suffered any grievances. After arriving at the Heavenly Academy on the first day, Yi Qing Luo had been targeting her, causing her to suffer all sorts of grievances. Now he still dared to laugh at her in front of so many people? Shangguan Liuli's chest was filled with a ball of anger that was constantly surging up. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's departing figure, her eyes were filled with fury as she condensed profound qi into her palms and struck towards Yi Qing Luo's back. Yi Qing Luo's eyes flashed. As the sneer on her lips grew thicker, even her body was emitting bursts of chilliness. The surrounding people screamed out as they kept reminding her. She didn't dodge, as she minded her own business and walked on. Shangguan Liuli's attack instantly closed in on Yi Qing Luo's back. A palm strike landed. Bam! Ah! Two loud sounds were heard, only to see a petite figure flying up into the sky as it crashed heavily onto the ground. A mouthful of blood spurted out from the young lady's mouth.